I stood in the inner hall of King Ning's mansion, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The room was flooded with bright lantern light, reflecting off the polished floors. Despite the exhaustion deep in my bones, I couldn't stop smiling. I looked at the girl in front of me, my heart swelling with pride. "Congratulations, Exiner," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You've awakened the Saint Luan and opened all 9 meridians. You're a genius now." Ning Xian stood there in her flowing purple dress, looking like a goddess. She was 16, beautiful, and surrounded by a faint purple mist. For 2 years, I had given her everything. Every single day, I used my own ancestral dragon chi to nourish her sword soul. It had drained me, leaving my face pale and my body weak, but it was worth it. I loved her. "It's all thanks to you, Yihong," she said. My heart skipped a beat. Usually, she called me Brother Yihong. The change in her tone was cold, but I told myself she was just overwhelmed by her new power. Then, she slowly raised her hand. With a flick of her wrist, a burst of purple sword chi surged from her palm, shaping itself into a small, razor-sharp bird. It flew toward me. I didn't move, thinking she was just showing off. Then, the bird grazed my left cheek. A sharp pain flared up as a 3-inch gash opened, and warm blood began to drip down my neck. I stumbled back, my eyes wide with shock. "Exiner, what are you doing? Who gave you permission to call her Exiner?" a cold voice boomed. A man in white robes stepped out from the shadows. It was Yu Yang, the 8th prince of the Qi kingdom. He walked straight to Ning Xian and wrapped an arm around her waist. He looked at me like I was a piece of trash stuck to his boot. "This waste has served his purpose," Yu Yang said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Should we just kill him now?" Ning Xian leaned into him, her expression indifferent. "Is a cripple even worth killing? Let him live. Let him suffer as punishment for thinking a toad like him could ever taste swan meat." It felt like a lightning bolt had struck my brain. My world crumbled in an instant. "Why?" I screamed, my voice cracking. "I gave you everything. I ruined my own ancestral dragon soul just to open your meridians. Why are you doing this?" Yu Yang laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Let me tell you why. Exiner is a princess of King Ning's mansion. You're just a kid from the Yi family in Li City. Your family is nothing but a local bunch of nobodies. She only used you for your soul. Now that she's awakened, you're useless." I looked at Ning Xian, hoping for a spark of regret. "Is it true?" She looked at me with pure disgust. "Yihong, don't blame me. Blame yourself for being so stupid. Did you really think I loved you? Every time you touched my hand, I felt sick for days. I had to pretend to like you just to get what I wanted." The rage hit me like a tidal wave. I roared and lunged at her, gathering the last remnants of my ancestral dragon chi into my fist. A dark red dragon shape flickered around my arm as I swung. But I was empty. My soul was shattered. Ning Xian didn't even blink. She raised a foot and kicked me squarely in the chest. I flew backward, slamming into the stone wall. My vision blurred as I slumped to the floor. "Send this trash back to Li City," Ning Xian commanded her guards. "Tell the Yi family he tried to assault me. Tell them I'll let it go, but only if they pay a massive fine. Otherwise, I'll wipe them out." The last thing I saw before I passed out was the two of them smiling together. When I finally opened my eyes, I was back in my family home. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering candle. My mother, Sulan, was sitting by my bed, her beautiful face worn with grief. My father, Yizheng, stood by the window, his shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. "Is there any hope?" my mother asked softly. My father shook his head. "His sword soul is destroyed. His meridians are drying up. If he were under 10 years old, we might be able to transplant a new soul, but now, it's over." He slammed his fist against the wall, his voice trembling. "That girl, how could she be so heartless? And you?" my mother cried, her voice rising in anger. "You didn't demand justice. You let them extort half of our family's savings." "It's King Ning's mansion," my father groaned. "They have the prince's backing. They framed our son for assault. If I didn't pay, they would have executed him on the spot. We have no choice but to swallow this bitterness. If it wasn't for hunger, she wouldn't even be able to join the Jixia Sword sect." My mother snapped. "If she can enter the Jixia Sword sect, then so can I. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. I sat up slowly, every muscle in my body screaming in pain. My parents jumped, rushing to my side. They couldn't believe I was awake so soon. "Hunger, you're okay," my mother sobbed, hugging me. "I'm fine, Mom," I said, though I felt anything but fine. My father gripped my shoulder. "Don't worry about cultivation anymore. Just get better. Even if you can't be a warrior, we'll protect you for the rest of our lives." I looked at him, my eyes burning with a cold, hard fire. They thought I was finished. They thought the path of the sword was closed to me forever. In this world, the sword's soul is everything. Without it, you are less than human. But I wasn't ready to give up. Ning Xian thought she had taken everything from me. She thought she had used me up and thrown me away like a broken tool. The ancestral dragon's soul isn't just a talent, I whispered to myself, my teeth clenched. It's a destiny. I don't believe the heavens are done with me yet. Even if the road ahead was blocked by mountains, I would cut my way through. I would find a way back to the top, and when I did, I would make them pay for every drop of blood I had lost. "I'm not going to stop," I told my father, my voice steady and filled with a resolve that surprised even him. "I'm going to keep moving forward." My father, Yi Zhong, looked at me with a flicker of pride in his eyes. He told me that as long as a person didn't collapse from within, no one else could truly break them. He suggested that if I couldn't be a sword cultivator, I could become an inscriptionist. Powerful inscriptionists were highly sought after by every major sect. Even the royal family of Qi and the Jixia sword sect had special academies for them. "Father," I said, meeting his gaze, "I'm not just going to be an inscriptionist. I'm going to brand those inscriptions onto my own body. I'm going to become a body cultivator." My parents froze. Their faces turned pale with shock. In the sword spirit continent, body cultivators were extremists. The path was brutal, agonizing, and incredibly dangerous. Statistics showed that over 90% of people who tried it died during the process. Most of the survivors ended up crippled. Only a tiny fraction ever reached the end. "I already thought about this," I said, my fists clenching tight. Back when I decided to help Ning Xian, I knew there was a risk. I told myself that if anything happened to my ancestral dragon soul, I would take this path. I reminded him of King Xiang Yi, a legendary figure who had been a world-shaking body cultivator. My father went silent, deep in thought. After a long moment, a relieved smile touched his lips. He saw that I wasn't just acting on a whim. He told me that as a descendant of the Yi family, I shouldn't give up, no matter how hard the road became. Suddenly, a voice called out from outside. The third elder had arrived. My father's expression turned cold instantly. He patted my head and told me to rest. He reminded me that the entrance exams for the Southern Territory Academy were only a month away. That was my only ticket into the Jixia sword sect. The main hall of the Yi family was packed. My father sat at the head, but next to him was a black-robed old man with narrowed eyes. This was Yi Xiangtian, the third elder. In our family, his seniority was so high that his power sometimes rivaled the clan leaders. Yi Xiangtian tapped his finger on the armrest, the sound echoing in the heavy silence. Then he snapped. He called me a beast. He accused me of molesting the prince's daughter and losing the family half its fortune. He demanded an explanation. Hunger was set up, my father said firmly. As for the financial loss, I will personally compensate the family. Not a single cent will be taken from any of you. Yi Xiangtian snorted. He didn't care about the money. He demanded that my father step down as clan leader and that I give up my spot at the Southern Territory Academy. My father agreed to step down to take responsibility for the family's decline, but he refused to give up my academy spot. "Is this a joke?" A middle-aged man laughed. It was Yi Qingyun, the third elder's son. "You think your son is still a genius? He's a cripple with a broken soul. My son, Yi Lin, is 100 times better than him. He deserves that spot." For years, Yi Qingyun had been waiting for a chance to take my father's position. He had always lost because I was a top-tier genius and his son was just average. Now that I was ruined, he was moving in for the kill. The rest of the elders joined in, calling me a waste and demanding the spot go to Yi Lin. My father stood up, his voice rising in anger. He reminded them that I was the one who earned that spot in the first place. He reminded them that I was the one who saved Yi Lin and the others when they offended Ning Xian in the past. And besides, my father added, Honger has decided to become a body cultivator. He can still enter the academy. The hall erupted in laughter. Yi Qingyun called it a path for the dead. He asked if the family should pin its hopes on a future corpse or a cripple. They didn't care about what I had done for them. They only saw an opportunity to step on me. My son is not a waste, my father roared. His sword chi exploded from his body, shaking the room. He was willing to give up his title, but he wouldn't let them insult me. If a broken soul isn't a waste, then what is? A cold voice sneered. It was Yi Lin. He was Yi Qingyun's son, a guy with a cloud leopard soul who had always been jealous of me. He looked at my father with total disrespect, asking if the clan leader intended to use his strength to bully the younger generation. In his eyes, my downfall was the best thing that ever happened to him. Even if my sword soul was gone, I was still 10,000 times better than him. Suddenly, I stepped out from the shadows and into the flickering torchlight. I had known this was coming. These people hadn't come for a friendly chat. They were here to demand my head on a platter. You don't need to target my father, I said, my voice cutting through the air like ice. I'm the one who caused this. I'll take responsibility. It has nothing to do with him. I let my gaze sweep across the room. I was supposed to be a waste now, but for some reason, the elders flinched. They couldn't handle the pressure behind my eyes. To be honest, I continued, if you hadn't pulled this stunt today, I might have given up the Southern Academy spot on my own. But now, if you want it, come and take it. Show me your strength. Yi Lin let out a mocking laugh. Strength? You're a cripple. Did that woman eat your brain along with your soul? You're lucky if you can still hold on to 2 or 3 pulses of power. In 2 days, you'll have nothing left. You really think you can compete with me? The others shook their heads, whispering that I should just accept my fate. I didn't care. I just smiled. Since you're so sure I'll be powerless in 3 days, let's make a bet. I challenged him. A duel. If you win, the spot is yours. If you lose, you serve me for the rest of your life. Deal, Yi Lin snapped. He didn't hesitate. To him, I was a dead man walking. He couldn't imagine losing to a failure like me. My father, Yi Zheng, looked worried, but then he saw the confidence in my eyes. He realized I looked even more sure of myself than I did before my soul was taken. Later that night, I locked myself in the family study. I pulled a hidden bag from behind a bookshelf and took out a gold-handled brush with fine black bristles. This was an inscription pen. Inscriptions were created by using the soul as ink to draw complex patterns. Most people used them on swords, but body cultivators branded them onto their own flesh. I pulled out 3 ancient scrolls passed down through my family: the tiger strength pattern, the soaring ape pattern, and the wisdom eye pattern. I focused. I dipped the pen into my own soul energy and began to draw in the air. A white light flowed from the tip. I had been practicing this in secret for years, just in case I ever needed a backup plan. I finished the wisdom eye pattern. It glowed like a small, mysterious leaf. Open, I whispered. I pressed the glowing mark directly into the acupoint between my eyebrows. Pain exploded. It felt like a ball of molten iron was being shoved into my skull. I screamed, sweat pouring down my face. My skin began to crack. Blood trickled down my forehead. I felt like my head was going to burst open from the pressure. I gritted my teeth. I couldn't let go. If my will broke now, I was finished. Just as I reached my limit, something stirred deep in my dantian. A dormant red mass moved like a waking blood dragon. It radiated a thick, vengeful aura. To live again, you must first die. The ancestral dragon soul wasn't gone. It had just been drained so badly by Ning Xian that it fell into a deep sleep. It needed an extreme shock to wake up. The dragon began to devour the energy of the inscription. The pain faded. The cracks on my forehead healed. An hour later, I slumped against the wall, gasping for air. The wisdom I was just a basic mark, yet it nearly killed me. The path of a body cultivator was going to be hell. But the dragon was awake. It was still weak, but there was hope. Ning Xian, Yu Yang, I whispered. When the dragon returns, you will tremble. 3 days later, the training grounds were packed. Everyone wanted to see the fallen genius get crushed. Yi Lin stood on the stage in his purple robes, looking smug. He had already opened 8 pulses. His soul was a cloud leopard. I used to have 9 pulses and a Saint Tear dragon soul. Now, Everyone assumed I was down to 3 pulses at most. A fallen phoenix is worse than a chicken, I heard someone jeer. They thought I was here to be humiliated. They were wrong. Opening a single pulse was enough to easily overpower dozens of ordinary men. Up on the stage, Yilin was basking in the attention of the crowd. For a long time, she had lived in my shadow, hidden by my brilliance. To someone as arrogant as her, that was a deep humiliation. Today, she intended to wash that shame away. Below the stage, her father, Yi Qingyun, looked just as smug. He had been suppressed by my father, Yi Zheng, for decades. He finally felt like he could breathe again. My parents, however, were filled with nothing but dread. They didn't care about the title of family head or the spots in the Southern Region Academy. They cared about my spirit. They knew that a single defeat today could shatter my confidence forever. Yihong is here, someone shouted. The noisy crowd suddenly went silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me as I walked through the parting throng. I was a bit thinner than I used to be, but I kept a faint smile on my lips. Still acting tough? Yilin sneered. She held a silver sword, and thin wisps of sword chi swirled around her. She looked formidable. If you surrender now, you might save some face, she said, her eyes cold. If we actually fight, I'll turn you into a permanent cripple. I stepped onto the stage and brushed off my robes. You seem very confident, I said quietly. She laughed, pointing her blade at me. If I wasn't confident against a piece of trash, I'd have wasted all these years of training. Let's begin. I didn't want to waste breath on her. I dropped into a low stance, my feet gripping the stone floor. I hooked my fingers like claws, mimicking the posture of a fierce tiger. You plan to face my sword barehanded? Yilin's eyes flashed with anger. I just smiled. You haven't reached the level where I need to draw a weapon. The crowd erupted in hushed whispers. They thought I was delusional. I was already at a massive disadvantage, yet I was still trying to show off. Since you're looking for death, I won't stop you, Yilin barked. She swung her sword, and a dazzling array of strikes enveloped me. It was the flying flower technique. It was fast, relentless, and powerful. She was an 8th-grade sword disciple, capable of 9 strikes in a single breath. To the onlookers, the sword was moving so fast I shouldn't have been able to even see it. They expected me to stand there like a fool and get cut to pieces. I didn't move. I didn't dodge. But the moment she swung, the wisdom eye inscription between my eyebrows flickered. The golden lines spread toward my eyes, and my vision transformed. The world slowed down. Her perfect sword technique suddenly looked like a mess of mistakes. I saw 7 or 8 openings instantly. Then, a tiger's roar echoed in my mind. The tiger strength inscription on my right fist flared to life. Boom. A figure was sent flying off the stage. The crowd froze. The sound of Yilin's sword clattering onto the ground hit everyone like a physical blow. My mother's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't just crying because I won. She knew the hell I must have endured to master 2 inscriptions in just 3 days. The rest of the clan was stunned. No one believed a person could brand 2 inscriptions in such a short time. In 1,000 years of history, only the legendary King Chu had ever done something similar. Yilin scrambled up from the dirt, her face pale with rage. I looked down at her. I told you, even if I'm fallen, I'm still better than you. You think a body cultivator can really beat a sword cultivator? She screamed. She grabbed her sword and leaped back onto the stage. Enough, my father shouted, jumping up to stand between us. Yilin, you've already lost. Don't make a scene. Yi Qingyun stepped forward immediately. Family head, that's going too far. We never set rules for this fight. You can't just declare her the loser. Or are you afraid? We all saw it. Yihong only won because of a sneak attack. In a real fight, he's no match for her. My father laughed, though he was fuming. In a non-lethal duel, whoever is knocked off the stage loses. That is the Yi family rule. And are you blind? She attacked first. How is that a sneak attack? The crowd started to murmur. Some of the elders who had been backing Yilin were starting to look uncertain. Yi Qingyun was clearly just being difficult. If you're scared to die, just say it. Yilin challenged me again. She refused to believe an 8th-grade sword disciple could lose to a waste like me. Dad, I said, a smirk playing on my lips. Some people won't learn until they're in the coffin. Step down. I'll fight her until she cries. My father looked at me, saw the absolute confidence in my eyes, and jumped back down. Come on then, Yilin hissed. This time, I'll show you what sword chi feels like. She braced herself, and her robes began to flutter even though there was no wind. The air around her grew heavy as her power surged. My parents gripped their chairs. When a sword cultivator uses sword chi, their strength and speed double. Even worse, the chi can extend from the blade. A 3-foot-long green glow erupted from her sword tip. Just this? I asked. This is enough to send you to the afterlife, she screamed. She lunged. This time, her speed was terrifying. The sword chi wove a web of light around me, sealing off every escape route. Even with the wisdom eye, the openings were few and far between. But as the net closed in, the inscriptions on my feet glowed. I became as light as an ape. I moved with the wind, twisting and turning through the gaps in her sword light with impossible grace. Before she could react, another tiger roar shook the air. I landed a heavy palm strike right on her chest, sending her crashing off the stage for the second time. The ape flight inscription, someone screamed. The entire square went into an uproar. Wisdom eye, tiger strength, ape flight. 3 inscriptions in 3 days. My parents' vision blurred with tears of pride. That's my son, my father roared. He laughed toward the sky and then slammed his foot onto the stage. His own sword chi exploded outward, sharp and overwhelming. Who else dares to question my son? No one spoke. No one moved. They were all too terrified to breathe. The shock on the faces of the crowd was unmistakable. My father hadn't just broken through to the sword sea realm. He had condensed a sword platform. He was officially a sword master. Only a sword master could manifest sword chi into such a tangible, blade-like form. No one expected this match to end this way. The faces of Yi Xiangtian, Yi Qingyun, and Yi Lin turned pale, shifting from green to white. They thought they had the upper hand, but they had been utterly crushed. In our world, opening the meridians makes you a sword apprentice. Opening the sea makes you a sword specialist. But only by condensing the platform do you become a sword master. Even Yi Xiangtian had been stuck at level 9 for years, never crossing that threshold. If they had known my father was a sword master, they never would have dared to push us this far. A single sword master was enough to suppress the entire branch. Yi Xiangtian looked defeated, his eyes dimming as his anger evaporated. My father hadn't used his power to bully them from the start. He had shown restraint and character that no one else in the family could match. Family head, Yi Xiangtian muttered, bowing his head. I, Yi Xiangtian, am convinced. I submit. Suddenly, a black eagle circled above and dived into the inner courtyard. My father raised his arm, and the bird landed firmly on his sleeve. Dad, is that a letter from Aunt? I asked. I recognized the bird. Every time it appeared, it brought news from my aunt, who had been a student at the Southern Prison Academy for years. She was the strongest expert in the Yi family. My father smiled and untied the letter. But as he read, the smile vanished. My stomach dropped. He looked at me, his eyes heavy and grave. Honger, your aunt has been sent to the immortal sacrifice. What? My blood ran cold. I clenched my fists. Aunt is a level 9 sword specialist. How could they send her there? You need to be a great sword master just to have a chance at surviving that place. The immortal sacrifice was known across the kingdom of Qi as the most dangerous forbidden zone. Only those at the great sword master level had a sliver of hope. Your aunt said she was planning to go into secluded cultivation to break through, my father said, his voice low and raspy. But 3 days ago, she received a sudden order from the Academy high-level officials. They commanded her to complete a mission in the immortal sacrifice. 3 days ago, I felt a chill. That was the exact day my own incident happened. It couldn't be a coincidence. My father and I locked eyes, and we both spoke the same name at once, Prince Ning. The air in the courtyard felt like lead. Dad, I broke the silence. The Southern Prison Academy doesn't open for another month. I'm going to the Thunder Marsh Mountains. I leave tomorrow. My father flinched. The Thunder Marsh? No, absolutely not. It's too dangerous. There are 100-year-old demon kings in there that can rival a sword master, not to mention the countless lesser beasts. Dad, I said, looking him straight in the eye. I'm a body cultivator now. I can't just practice behind closed doors anymore. My inscriptions were enough to beat someone like Yilin, but if I face the experts from Prince Ning's manor, I'll fail. They've already pushed Ant into a death trap. If I don't get stronger fast, how can the Yi family survive? And don't forget the Peng family. They're watching us like vultures. My father went silent. He knew I was right, but he didn't want to lose his son. He was a sword master, but he was old. His potential was capped. I was the only hope left for our bloodline. Body cultivation is different from the sword, I continued. I only grow through life and death struggles. Years ago, the Chu king carried a heavy sword through the great wilderness and Kunlun to break his limits. He survived the harshest environments for 5 years to become the ultimate body cultivator. He is my goal. My father looked at me, and a proud smile finally touched his lips. He realized I wasn't a child anymore. Hardship had forced me to grow up. He reached out and slammed a heavy hand onto my shoulder, a gesture of both pride and the passing of a heavy burden. The Thunder Marsh Mountains sat 80 miles south of the city. Asterisk bam, 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 asterisk. A series of muffled impacts and a final, dying howl echoed through the trees. A massive carcass hit the ground. I wiped the sweat from my brow, breathing hard. My experience is still too low, I muttered to myself. My techniques are clumsy. A 50-year-old one-horned wolf shouldn't have been able to wound me. I pulled a bottle of golden salve from my robe and sprinkled it on a gash on my arm. This was my 3rd day in the mountains and my 8th battle. My body was covered in over a dozen small wounds, but they were already scarring over. These scars were the proof of my progress. I used a short knife to hack off the wolf's horn, then cracked open its skull. I pulled out a golden kernel about the size of a walnut. Not every beast had one of these, especially those under 100 years old. This was my first find. Inside the golden kernel, a thick green light swirled. This was the essence of the wolf. It wasn't very useful for my body cultivation, but it was a treasure for sword cultivators. Let's see if this works, I whispered. I sat cross-legged on a flat rock and opened my right palm. A faint, blood-red glow emerged, my crippled ancestral dragon. Since it had absorbed the energy from those 3 inscriptions, it wasn't fully dormant anymore, but it was still sluggish. 2 years of depletion was a lot to recover from. The dragon raised its head, its tiny eyes flickering as it caught the scent of the golden kernel. It wiggled out of my right hand and crawled toward my left, where the kernel lay. It took all its strength to reach the goal. The dragon opened its mouth and began to suck the green essence out of the kernel. My eyes lit up. This dragon was just like me. As long as it could eat, it would eventually recover. The process was slow. It took half an hour just to drain half the essence. I stayed patient, letting it feed. Meanwhile, back in the city, at the Peng Manor. Dad, I've confirmed it. Yi Hong went to the Thunder Marsh Mountains alone. A young man in white spoke to a stern-looking middle-aged man. These were Peng Wansheng, the head of the Peng family, and his son, Peng Fei. Oh, Peng Wansheng leaned back. You're sure he's alone? Positive, Peng Fei nodded. Peng Wansheng let out a dry, cold laugh. His soul is crippled, and he dares to go deep into the Thunder Marsh. I admire his courage. If he stayed in the city with his father protecting him, I couldn't touch him. But now, he's a dead man. I wasn't done with the golden kernel yet. Peng Fei frowned at his father, his voice laced with confusion. Dad, he's already a cripple. Why are we spending so much effort and resources just to deal with a nobody like him? Peng Wansheng looked up, his eyes cold and calculating. Fei, you're right. To himself, and to everyone else, his shattered soul makes him a waste. But to the Peng family, he is incredibly valuable. Peng Fei still looked lost. His father stood up, walked over, and patted his shoulder with a thin smile. Tell me, who was the one who crippled Yi Hong? The prince's mansion, Peng Fei answered instantly. Princess Ning Xin. Exactly, Peng Wansheng said. Now, if you were Ning Xin, would you want Yi Hong to keep breathing? Of course not. But she can't kill him herself without looking petty or cruel. She needs someone else to do the dirty work. Peng Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. The realization hit him like a lightning bolt. I get it. If we kill Yi Hong for her, we get close to Prince Ning. And since Prince Ning is backed by Prince Yuyang, we're essentially using a dead man's life to buy a seat on the most powerful ship in the kingdom. We won't just rule this city. We'll have a place in the royal capital. Peng Wanqing let out a satisfied laugh. Exactly. Go make the arrangements. The Thunder Marsh Mountains are a beautiful place for a grave. As Peng Fei left to gather his men, a spirit eagle took flight from the Peng Manor, heading straight for the Southern Prison Academy. The Yi family had suppressed them for years. It was finally time to swallow them whole. Deep in the mountains, my ancestral dragon soul finally finished draining the essence from the golden kernel. It let out a loud, satisfied burp and lazily curled back up inside my body to sleep. I give you all this food. You'd better start working, I muttered. At least keep my meridians stable. I was focusing on body cultivation now, but I hadn't given up on the dragon. I dreamed of the day I could reopen my sword paths and condense a true sword platform. With that hope driving me, I moved. I took off like a leopard, sprinting deeper into the wilderness. The further I went, the more dangerous the aura became. They say century-old demon kings lived in these depths, beasts with power rivaling a true sword master. Their kernels would be overflowing with essence. As the sun began to set, I leaped into the thick canopy of a massive tree to hide. Suddenly, the sound of a violent struggle reached my ears. I looked through the leaves and saw a tall girl fighting two burly men about 30 yards away. She was covered in blood, her movements sluggish and desperate. "You little bitch," one of the men roared. He was dark-skinned and swung a massive two-handed heavy sword. "You dare touch something Prince Ning's mansion has claimed? You're tired of living." He swung his blade, the force of it sending the girl reeling backward. At the mention of Prince Ning, my fists clenched. My eyes turned cold, sharp as a blade. "Does Prince Ning's mansion have no rules?" the girl gasped, trying to find her footing. "You lost the bid at the auction. You couldn't afford the price, so you resort to robbery? You're nothing but bandits." She raised her sword, the inscriptions on the blade flickering as she forced out a desperate beam of light. But her injuries were too deep. Her hands were shaking. "In the southern region, Prince Ning is the rule," the dark-skinned man laughed. He swung again, his yellow sword energy exploding with every strike. After 2 more hits, the girl was knocked to the ground, rolling in the dirt. The other man stepped forward, a silver glint in his eyes. "Don't kill her yet. She's a beauty. It'd be a waste. Snap her tendons first. We'll play with her, then finish her off." He raised his sword, aiming directly for her ankles. The girl's face went pale. She was trapped, pinned to the ground, watching the blade descend. She could already feel the agony of her tendons being sliced, the humiliation that would follow. Whoosh. In that heartbeat between life and death, a streak of cold white light flashed from the trees. The man felt a sudden chill in his soul, but he had no time to react. "Poochie." He clutched his throat. A short knife was buried deep in his neck. Blood sprayed through his fingers. He gasped for air for 2 seconds, slumped forward, and twitched once before going still. "One throw. One kill." "Who's there?" the dark-skinned man screamed. He dropped into a defensive crouch, gripping his heavy sword with both hands. His eyes darted toward the trees, his body radiating a thick, yellow aura of power. Whoosh. Another flash of cold light. This time, the man was ready. He roared and swung his heavy sword to intercept it. Bang! The man's hand screamed in pain as the skin between his thumb and forefinger tore open. His 100-pound sword was knocked clean out of his hands, flying through the air. He stumbled back, his face filled with horror. The thing that had disarmed him was a tiny knife, barely 3 inches long. He was a level 9 sword trainee with a brown bear soul known for its raw strength. How could a throwing knife carry that much power? The girl watched in shock as I leaped down from the branches. I already had a 3rd knife ready. Whoosh. "Yihong," the man gasped. He recognized me. He was a regular at the prince's mansion, and I used to be there all the time. But his brain couldn't process the reality. My soul was supposed to be destroyed. Where did this strength come from? He never got his answer. The knife grew larger in his vision until it pierced through his left eye and into his skull. He hit the ground, dead before he could even scream. The girl stared at the bodies, then at me. Decisive, ruthless. That was the first impression I gave her. She used her sword to pull herself up, leaning heavily on the blade as she looked me over. She noticed my sword aura was incredibly weak, almost non-existent. She couldn't understand it. How could someone with such weak energy throw a knife with enough force to disarm a level 9 trainee? Is he a body cultivator? She wondered. No, a 16-year-old body cultivator shouldn't be this strong. I walked closer. Now that she had wiped the blood from her face, her features were delicate and stunning, her wet clothes clinging to her curves. I didn't care. I gave her a cold, indifferent look. Thank you for saving my life, young Master Yi, she said softly. I was just killing people, I replied coldly. I wasn't saving you. My right hand stayed hidden inside my sleeve, fingers tightly gripping another throwing knife. If the girl made one wrong move, I was going to end her. I am Miao Ling Long, she whispered, her voice trembling. A student from the Southern Jade Academy. I watched her closely. She didn't try anything suspicious, so I finally relaxed my grip and tucked the blade away. I walked over to the two large men I'd just killed and retrieved my 3 bloodstained knives. While I was at it, I searched their bodies. From the waist of the black-faced man, I pulled out a piece of weathered animal skin. I unfolded it, revealing strange, intricate patterns and ancient script. My eyes lit up. This was a spirit-grade low-rank inscription. The 3 inscriptions currently branded on my body were only entry-level. Above entry-level lies the spirit grade, divided into low, medium, and high ranks. Low-rank spirit inscriptions aren't rare, but most are meant for weapons. Finding one suitable for the human body was a stroke of incredible luck. That's the giant spirit tattoo, Miao Ling Long said, her voice filled with surprise. I looked at her, actually acknowledging her for the first time. Most sword cultivators only recognize weapon inscriptions. They usually ignore the path of a body cultivator. You know this? I asked. I read about it in a book on body cultivation, she said casually. The giant spirit tattoo is powerful. It grants immense physical strength and can even absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to temper the flesh. Even though it's ranked as a low-grade spirit inscription, its actual effects rival the high-grade ones. I nodded, tucking the skin into my robe. The black-faced man must have been planning to brand this on himself to boost his combat power. Even some sword cultivators used body inscriptions as a secondary support, though it wasn't their main path. I climbed back into the high canopy of the massive tree as night began to fall over the Thunder Marsh Mountains. The forest came alive with the roars of nocturnal beasts, a chorus of predatory hunger that made Miao Ling Long shiver. Driven by fear and exhaustion, she crawled to the base of my tree and sat on the ground, leaning against the trunk. She tried to stay awake, but the day's battle had drained her. Within minutes, she was fast asleep. Up in the branches, I kept my eyes closed but stayed alert. I replayed my recent battles in my mind, analyzing every move. My body techniques were still too raw. Against a top-tier level 8 trainee, I could manage. But against a level 9, I had to rely on ambush and throwing knives. If the surprise failed, I'd be in trouble. I only killed those men easily because they were already exhausted from fighting the girl. I had practiced my knife throwing since I was a child. It wasn't by choice. My father, Yi Zheng, had been strict. He taught me that in a world of swords, everyone needs a few underhanded tricks to stay alive. As the moon hung high, shadows moved through the dark forest. A web of killing intent was slowly tightening around the mountain. At dawn, I dropped from the branches. The sound of my landing startled Miao Ling Long awake. She looked better after a night's rest, her energy slowly returning. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps crunching on dry leaves echoed through the woods. 4 men emerged from the brush. I frowned. I knew all of them. Leading them was a young man in expensive robes named Peng Hu. He was a direct descendant of the Peng family from the city, a level 7 trainee who had opened 7 meridians. In the past, he used to bow and scrape whenever he saw me. Now, his eyes held nothing but contempt. Well, if it isn't the #1 genius of our city, the young master of the Yi family, Peng Hu sneered. He looked thrilled, like he'd just found a prize he didn't want to share. Young Master Hu, don't give him a chance. Just kill him. A man with a facial tattoo whispered in his ear. Peng Hu laughed. A chance? He's a cripple with a destroyed soul. What chance does he have? He looked at me with a cruel grin. Trash. Tell me, do you really think you have a chance? His eyes then drifted to Miao Linglong, and they widened with greed. He scanned her aura and relaxed when he realized her energy was suppressed and weak. "Hey, little beauty," Peng Hu smirked. "Why follow this waste? Follow me instead. I'm a level 7 trainee, the third-ranked genius of the Peng family. I promise I'm 100 times better than this loser." Miao Linglong looked at him with a blank expression. I could see the confusion in her eyes. She was a level 9 trainee, and she clearly didn't understand where this level 7 idiot got his confidence. Then she glanced at me. She noticed my hands were hidden in my sleeves again. She remembered the sight of the knives from the day before. A small, knowing smile played on her lips. "I suggest you leave," she said softly. "Otherwise, you'll end up just like them." She pointed toward the brush a few yards away. Peng Hu and his men turned to look. Their faces paled as they saw the 2 dead bodies lying in the dirt. In that split second of distraction, I struck. Cold light flashed from my sleeves. Asterisk thwack. Thwack. Before they could even process the sight of the corpses, 2 of Peng Hu's men collapsed. Throwing knives were buried deep in their throats. Blood sprayed across the leaves. 1 kill, 1 hit. Peng Hu's eyes shrunk to pinpricks. He finally remembered. I was famous for my lethal accuracy with throwing knives. "You trash. You dare ambush us." Peng Hu roared. He lunged at me, his sword glowing with a sudden light. A sharp, ear-piercing screech filled the air, like a hawk diving for prey. "The eagle cry tattoo," I muttered. It wasn't an offensive inscription. It was a support type designed to emit a soul-shaking sound to disorient an opponent for a fraction of a second. In a life-and-death struggle, that second is all you need. His sword moved with vicious speed, aiming for my throat, my chest, and my dantian all at once. If even 1 strike landed, I was dead. But I didn't move. I stood there, perfectly calm. Is the trash paralyzed with fear? Peng Hu screamed, laughing like a maniac. He thought my reflexes had slowed because of my broken soul. He poured all his strength into the final lunge. At the very last millisecond, I moved. I activated my insight and featherlight inscriptions simultaneously. My body blurred, weaving through the gaps in his sword light like a ghost. No matter how fast or furious he swung, he couldn't even graze my clothes. Peng Hu's heart nearly stopped. He realized I wasn't just a body cultivator. I was something much more dangerous. How could I have branded 2 inscriptions already? Peng Hu's face went pale. He couldn't understand how my combat power had spiked so high in such a short time. "Are you practicing stabbing the air?" I mocked him. I didn't give him time to think. I activated my tiger strength inscription. I spotted a massive opening in his panicked defense and launched a punch. Boom. My fist slammed directly into his chest. Peng Hu felt like he'd been hit by a literal charging tiger. His body flew backward like a cannonball, trailing a spray of blood through the air. He crashed into the dirt, coughing violently. Three inscriptions, he wheezed, his eyes wide with disbelief. He knew exactly when my sword's soul had been destroyed. It had only been a few days. To brand 3 inscriptions in that time was impossible. "You're a lunatic," he stammered. A complete lunatic. Fear finally broke him. Seeing their leader crushed, the man with the tattoos realized the tide had turned. He didn't hesitate. He turned tail and bolted into the brush. He saw that even without my sword soul, I was faster, stronger, and far more ruthless than before. "Running," I whispered. Cold light flashed in my eyes. My right hand flicked out. A silver streak tore through the air and pierced straight through the back of the tattooed man's skull. He dropped like a stone. Peng Hu was trembling now. To him, I wasn't just a madman anymore. I was a demon. As I stepped toward him, he scrambled backward on the ground, his heels digging into the dirt. "You want to run too?" I smiled. To Peng Hu, that smile looked like a death warrant. A terrifying chill washed over him. What do you want?" he stammered. "I woke up early this morning," I said calmly, stepping closer. "I haven't even had breakfast yet, and I get surrounded by a pack of dogs. And you're asking me what I want." My voice turned ice cold. "Tell me, how many people did the Peng family send? What's the plan against my family?" I knew the Peng family would try to kick us while we were down. Under the pressure of my gaze, Peng Hu didn't dare lie. He spilled everything. To kill me, they had sent over 20 disciples. To crush the Yi family, they had even recalled their top experts from the Southern Prison Academy. All of this just to suck up to Prince Ning. Good. Very good, I growled. A sound like a tiger's roar erupted from my throat. The tiger's strength inscription flared on my skin. I swung my fist and crushed Peng Hu's skull in a single blow. Behind me, Miao Linglong stood frozen. She was well-traveled, but she had never seen a teenager this brutal. A few miles away, Peng Fei and a squad of 13 men were scouring the woods. He stopped suddenly, his ears twitching. "What was that sound?" he asked. "Young master, that wasn't a beast," one of his men replied. "That was a person." Peng Fei's eyes narrowed. A cruel joy spread across his face. "Did someone find Yi Hong? Move out." They were fast. Before I could even leave the clearing, they burst through the trees. Peng Fei looked at the pile of corpses, his men, and his face twisted in rage. "You bastard," he screamed. "Kill him." 13 shadows lunged at me like a pack of starving leopards. I didn't hesitate. I flicked 2 flying knives to slow them down and turned to run. If it were 3 or 4 men, I'd fight. 13? That was suicide. Miao Linglong gasped, "Hey, are you just going to leave me?" She had no choice but to push her movement technique to the limit and sprint after me. Asterisk clang. Clang. Asterisk. Peng Fei swatted my knives away with his sword, but the impact made his hands go numb. He was shocked by the raw power behind the throw. "Careful," Peng Fei shouted to his men. "Don't let that trash ambush you." Peng Hu and the others were killed by throat strikes. "He's weak now. He can only rely on sneak attacks. Catch him, and I'll skin him alive." The terrain was rugged and steep, but I moved like a streak of lightning, heading deeper into the Thunder Marsh Mountains. Miao Linglong was right on my heels. "Stop following me if you don't want to die," I yelled over my shoulder. "If I knew you had this many enemies, I never would have followed you," she snapped back, her face flushed with anger. "But they think we're together now. Even if I leave you, they'll hunt me down." "Move," I barked. She saw my hand move and instinctively dived to the side. A flying knife whistled past her ear, carrying a gust of cold wind. The knife buried itself in the gut of a Peng disciple who had been closing in on her with a sword. The force of the hit sent him flying back 10 feet. Miao Linglong glanced at me, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. I had saved her again. "Damn it," Peng Fei roared. He was losing his mind. "All these people, and I had managed to take another one down while retreating. I'm going to tear you into 1,000 pieces." I didn't stop to chat. I moved through the trees like an ape, leaping from branch to branch. I was so fast that even Miao Linglong, a 9th-stage sword trainee, was struggling to keep up. "Wait for me," she cried out. "If you want someone to take care of you, go find your father." I replied, my eyes scanning the perimeter. I kept a knife gripped in my palm at all times. You are so heartless," she huffed. Whatever gratitude she felt vanished instantly. "I'm trying to stay alive, not make friends," I snapped. I leaped onto a high branch and looked back. Peng Fei and his crew were trailing about 50 yards behind. They were staying back, terrified of my knives. Suddenly, a streak of light shot into the sky and exploded. A signal flare. "Calling for backup?" I muttered. I didn't slow down. I pushed deeper into the wilderness. Peng Fei kept his men on my trail, marking the trees as they went so the rest of the Peng family could converge on our position. "Are you crazy?" Miao Linglong shouted. "There are century-old monster kings deep in here. They're as strong as sword masters. They'll eat us in one bite." "Then stop following me," I said. I didn't have a choice. Peng Fei had gathered over 20 people now. If I doubled back, I was dead. My only hope was to lead them so deep that the fear of the monsters would make them turn back. Suddenly, a foul, rotting stench hit my nose. I heard a faint, rhythmic rumbling like distant thunder. The Thundermarsh Cave. The mountain was named after this place. Inside was a massive swamp, home to a monster king that could breathe lightning. "You aren't actually going in there, are you?" Miao Linglong asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I just let out a grim smile and ran straight toward the sound of the thunder. 50 yards back, Peng Fei saw where I was headed and signaled his men to stop. He pulled out a map. "The idiot is heading for the cave," Peng Fei sneered. "There's no other way out. It's surrounded by cliffs. We just have to block the entrance, and he's trapped. He can either jump off a cliff or get eaten by the monster." He looked at his men, his eyes cold. "Move slow. Keep your distance. Watch for his knives, and make sure we don't lure the Monster King out of the cave too early. I arrived at a clearing where the grass grew waist-high. To my left was a sheer drop-off, and directly ahead stood a jagged cliff face rising hundreds of feet into the air. Through the thick brush, I saw a wide, flattened trail. It wasn't made by human feet, it was a snake path. I remembered my father, Yi Zheng, telling me about this place. This path led straight to a cave carved into the cliffside. As I got closer, the air grew heavy with the stench of rotting meat and old blood. It was foul. Behind me, Miao Linglong covered her nose and winced, her brows knitting together in disgust. Let's see where you run now, you piece of trash. Peng Fei's voice boomed from about 30 yards away. He had stopped just outside the effective range of my throwing knives. At that distance, my blades would lose their momentum and become easy to dodge. He wasn't taking any chances. It's over, Miao Linglong whispered, her face pale. We shouldn't have come here. They've caught up, and now we're trapped between them and the cave. I didn't look at her. I narrowed my eyes, ignoring the Peng family entirely. My focus was locked on the pitch-black mouth of the cave. Archers ready, Peng Fei shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. Run, Yihong. Why aren't you running anymore? Weren't you the genius with the ancestral dragon soul? There are only 20 of us. Why don't you come over here and fight us all? Maybe you'll actually win. Ha ha. The Peng family lackeys erupted in laughter. They looked at me with twisted satisfaction, enjoying the sight of a fallen genius cornered like a rat. Peng Fei looked especially smug. For years, he had to walk the long way around just to avoid me. Today, he finally felt like the bigger man. Miao Linglong glanced at me, surprised to hear about my supposed soul, but I didn't give Peng Fei the satisfaction of a response. I didn't even turn around. I activated my wisdom eye, pushing my vision to its limit to pierce the darkness of the cavern. Bastard! Peng Fei snapped, his face flushing red at being ignored. He raised his hand and dropped it sharply. Fire! 3 arrows whistled through the air, trailing streaks of light. They moved with incredible speed, cutting through the wind like glowing meteors. Flowing gold arrows, Miao Linglong gasped. These weren't ordinary projectiles. They were inscribed with 2 runes, flowing light for speed and shattering gold for penetration. At close range, a single shot could punch a hole straight through a high-level cultivator. The arrows closed the distance in a heartbeat. Miao Linglong reached for her sword to parry them, but I was faster. The runes on my boots flared with light, and I lunged forward, disappearing into the cave. Miao Linglong didn't hesitate. She gritted her teeth and dove in right after me. The 3 arrows slammed into the rock wall where I had been standing, burying themselves half a foot deep into the solid stone. The idiot actually went in, Peng Fei said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. This was exactly what he wanted. He wanted to squeeze me until I had nowhere left to go. The Peng family had been living in the Yi family shadow for too long. This was his revenge. Young master, don't worry, one of his men said, a rat-faced youth leaning forward. Nobody leaves the Thunder Marsh cave alive. The purple coffin thunder snake has lived there for 200 years. It's a true monster king. Peng Fei nodded. We wait here for 3 days. If he doesn't come out by then, he's fish food. Inside the cave, the stench of decay was overwhelming. Miao Linglong was squinting, her eyes watering from the fumes. She moved in total silence, terrified of waking the beast. I, however, kept my wisdom eye active, scanning the environment. The entrance led into a narrow tunnel about 10 yards long. Once we cleared it, the space opened up into a massive underground chamber. It was huge, nearly 5 miles wide with a ceiling 100 feet high. It felt like the entire mountain had been hollowed out. It was pitch black. The only sound was a rhythmic, low rumbling that vibrated in my chest like distant thunder. It grew louder, then softer, echoing off the damp walls. Miao Linglong grabbed my arm, her hand trembling. You were so talkative before, I whispered. Why so quiet now? Shoo, she hissed, her voice barely audible. Do you want to wake the Monster King? Snakes have terrible hearing, I said calmly. If it can't hear us talking, it already knows we're here through its other senses. I reached into my robe and pulled out a pair of specialized glasses. They were inscribed with cat-eye runes, designed to grant vision in total darkness. They were common enough to find in any city shop, but Miao Linglong had been running for her life and hadn't come prepared. I popped out one of the lenses and held it out to her. Hand. What? She reached out blindly in the dark. Her hand bumped into something solid and cylindrical. What is this? Why is it so big? Wait, is it getting bigger? That's something you don't have, I said, trying to move away. She didn't let go. If you don't let go right now, I guarantee you won't be able to fit your hand around it in a second. She let out a tiny gasp and jumped back like a startled rabbit. I could practically feel the heat radiating from her blushing face. She was only 16 and had clearly never had a closeness like that with a man before. Take the lens, I said, handing it to her. My voice was steady, which seemed to help her regain her composure. She held the lens to her eye. Suddenly, the darkness vanished. 2/3 of the cave was a massive swamp. Bubbles the size of wash basins rose from the muck, popping with wet thuds. Skeletons, both human and animal, littered the edges of the mire. A single snake path wound its way deep into the center, obscured by thick, strange vegetation. The legendary purple coffin thunder snake was nowhere to be seen. But my eyes were locked on a cluster of plants further in. That rhythmic, thundering sound was coming from right behind them. You aren't thinking of going over there, are you? Miao Linglong whispered. Let's just stay here. We can wait until the Peng family leaves. If I wasn't going over there, why would I come in here? I smiled. Did you really think I ran in here just to hide? She stared at me, realization dawning on her. I hadn't been fleeing. I had been hunting. I had led the Peng family here because this was my destination all along. I didn't wait for her to process it. I started circling the edge of the swamp, moving toward the vegetation. She had no choice but to follow. We rounded the thicket, and my heart skipped a beat. A massive, looming silhouette filled my vision. There, hidden behind the brush, lay the beast. The creature was a nightmare. A massive snake, 30 feet long, lay coiled in the shadows. Its scales were the size of a man's palm, shimmering with a deep, toxic purple light. On its head sat a strange, mechanical-looking protrusion, the crown. Its eyes were closed, but silver mist pulsed from its nostrils with every breath. Each exhale sounded like a low roll of thunder. This was the ruler of the Thunder Marsh, the purple coffin thunder snake. Miao Linglong trembled beside me. I remained still, my breath held tight. Even for me, this thing was a monster. But it was sleeping. I signaled to her with a sharp wave of my hand, gesturing for us to back away quietly. We retreated to the edge of the swamp. Miao Linglong let out a breath she'd been holding, a playful, nervous smirk crossing her face. I actually thought you weren't afraid of death, she whispered. I ignored the jab. What inscriptions are on your sword? I asked. She blinked, surprised I was still planning a move. Armor piercing and strong bow. Just those two. My eyes lit up. Those were spirit-grade inscriptions. In the entire Yi family, only my aunt and the branch leader, Yi Zheng, possessed anything of that caliber. One to shred defense, one to boost power. It was the perfect combination. Borrowing this, I said, snatching the blade from her hand before she could protest. Wait here. If I die, stay hidden. You're a student of the Southern Prison Academy. The Peng family won't dare kill you if they find you alone. Without waiting for her reply, I turned back toward the beast. The pressure increased with every step. The snake's thunderous breathing vibrated in my chest. If my will wasn't tempered by the ancestral dragon soul, my legs would have given out. I knew its eyes were its weakest point, but its heart was the only way to kill it. The problem was, on a snake this size, I couldn't tell where the heart was. I stepped into the muck. I had to make the first strike count. If I didn't take half its life in one blow, I was dead. 3 yards away. My palms were slick with sweat. My feet felt like lead. From the shore, Miao Linglong looked like she was about to scream. She must have thought I was insane. She wasn't wrong. 1 yard away. I stopped breathing entirely. Suddenly, the snake's eyelid flickered. It was waking up. Now, I screamed internally. Flash sword technique. I didn't hold back. I triggered everything at once. The ape leap and tiger strength inscriptions on my body, the armor piercing and strong bow inscriptions on the sword, and every drop of chi in my 3 sword veins. A streak of light cut through the gloom. Before the beast could even register my presence, the blade sank deep. I drove the 4-foot sword straight into its left eye, burying it all the way to the hilt. The snake let out a shriek that rattled my bones. I didn't linger. I ripped the sword out and leaped backward. But I wasn't fast enough. The beast's massive tail whipped through the air like a falling tree. Bang! The blow caught me midair. I was sent flying 60 feet, crashing into the mud. My blood surged, and I barely managed to keep from vomiting it up. Its physical strength was terrifying. The snake went berserk. It thrashed blindly, smashing rocks into powder. Then, it turned its one good eye toward me and roared. A bolt of lightning shot from its mouth. It was too fast to dodge. The lightning slammed into my chest, throwing me another 30 feet. This time, I couldn't stop the blood. I spat a crimson mouthful onto the ground. The elemental attack was even worse than its physical strength. "Yihong!" Miao Linglong cried out. She ran to me, pulling me up, but the snake was already lunging. Outside the cave, Peng Fei heard the commotion. "What a pity," he said, leaning against a tree with a cruel smile. "I won't get to see him die. And that girl, such a beauty, wasted in a snake's belly." Inside, the nightmare continued. The snake's tail slammed into both of us, throwing us against the far wall of the cave. The impact was so violent the stone cracked in a spiderweb pattern. My blood sprayed onto the wall, seeping into the fissures. Suddenly, the cracks began to glow with a brilliant white light. I didn't have time to wonder why. I shoved the sword back into Miao Linglong's hands. "Run!" I yelled. "Go, while you still can." I drew 3 flying daggers and hurled them at the snake's head. They struck the scales with a metallic clink and bounced off, leaving nothing but faint scratches. The armor was impenetrable. Miao Linglong didn't run. She stood her ground, her sword glowing with a deep blue water element chi. She swung, but the snake swatted her aside like a fly. She hit the wall again, right next to the glowing cracks. The white light intensified, flooding the cave. It felt strange, ancient. My ancestral dragon soul began to stir, reacting to the energy. The snake lunged again, its jaws wide enough to swallow me whole. I triggered the ape leap inscription at the last microsecond, vaulting over its head. Crash! The snake slammed face first into the glowing wall. The stone shattered completely, revealing a hidden chamber etched with high-level formations. The white light poured out like a flood. I didn't think. I dove straight into the light. Miao Linglong followed a second later, and we vanished into the glow. The purple coffin thunder snake stopped at the threshold. It hissed, its one eye wide with primal terror. Whatever was inside that light scared the beast more than we did. It turned tail and dove deep into the swamp, disappearing into the muck. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and for a split second, it felt like I was being sucked into a massive, spinning whirlpool. The world blurred into a streak of white. Then, a violent force slammed into my back. Thud! I hit the ground hard. Pain flared through my ribs, knocking the wind out of me. A second later, Miao Linglong was tossed out of the void just like I was. She landed with a sharp cry of pain, tumbling across the dirt. The moment my body touched the earth, I didn't wait to recover. I rolled instinctively, springing up like a cornered leopard. I channeled every ounce of my physical strength and inscription power into my limbs. My fingers gripped 3 flying daggers, ready to strike at whatever was waiting for us. "What are you doing?" Miao Linglong gasped, her eyes wide with fear at my sudden aggression. I froze, finally taking in our surroundings. The danger I expected wasn't there. We weren't in the damp, dark Thunder Marsh cave anymore. I looked around and felt a surge of confusion. We were standing on an island in the middle of a vast, endless ocean. The sky was a brilliant, piercing blue, meeting the water at a horizon so clear it looked like a single sheet of silk. The island itself was small, maybe 1,000 yards across, and strangely barren. There wasn't a single tree or blade of grass. It was just a jagged mound of ancient, weathered rock. "Where are we?" I muttered. Miao Linglong looked just as lost as I felt. One minute we were facing a thunder snake in a cave. The next we were in a completely different world. How did we get here? More importantly, how were we supposed to get back? The silence was eerie. Then, the ancestral dragon soul in my dantian let out a sudden, sharp pulse. It wasn't a warning, it was a reaction. It felt like a predator that had just caught the scent of its favorite prey. I followed the dragon's instinct and turned toward the water. Splash. The ocean surface broke. A massive golden shape erupted from the waves, shimmering under the sun. My heart tightened as I braced for a fight, but the creature didn't attack. It was a golden toad, the size of a millstone, its skin gleaming like polished coins. The toad hopped onto the shore and landed right in front of me. I kept my daggers raised, muscles tensed. Croak. The golden toad opened its mouth and spat out a crimson sphere. It was about the size of a fist, glowing with a warm, inner light. It rolled across the rock and stopped at my feet. I stared at it, stunned. The sphere felt warm, like polished jade, but inside the translucent red surface, I could see something moving. It was a tiny, coiled blood dragon, a perfect miniature of my own ancestral dragon soul. My internal dragon went wild. It began thrashing and roaring inside me, desperate to get out. I couldn't hold it back. I opened my palm, and the ancestral dragon soul surged out, circling the crimson sphere in a frantic, joyous dance. The two objects seemed to call to each other, locked in a magnetic pull. "Is that a dragon pearl?" I whispered. I looked at the golden toad, hoping for an answer, but the creature simply let out one last croak and dived back into the sea. Its job was done. Suddenly, my ancestral dragon soul opened its jaws and swallowed the pearl whole. A low, guttural roar erupted from my very soul. A blinding red light exploded from the dragon's body, wiping away its previous weakness. It began to grow at a terrifying speed. 1 foot, 2 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet. It soared into the sky, its massive body staining the clouds a deep, bloody crimson. The wind began to howl, and the ocean rose in violent waves. The air grew heavy with an ancient, overwhelming pressure that made my knees tremble. Miao Linglong stared up, speechless. I was just as shocked. As the dragon merged with the pearl, its essence became incredibly refined. I didn't know it then, but at that exact moment, the sky across the entire kingdom of Qi turned the color of fresh blood. Far to the north, on the peak of a mountain 10,000 feet high, stood a crumbling ancient temple buried in snow. Inside, a withered old man knelt before 2 bronze coffins. He looked more like a skeleton than a human, his white hair spilling across the floor like tangled silk. He hadn't moved in years. But as the dragon and pearl merged, his head lifted. "The golden toad offers the pearl, the blood sun sets," he rasped, his voice sounding like grinding stones. He stood up, his long hair falling away to reveal a glowing, mystical formation etched into the floor beneath him. He turned his gaze toward the distant horizon, his sunken eyes glowing with a golden light that seemed to pierce through time and space. "The Black Tortoise territory," he whispered. He pointed a skeletal finger forward. "Your Majesty, the dragon pearl has appeared. The blood sun rises, and the white phoenix's feathers are broken. I have guarded this place for 123,000 years. Finally, the fruit is ripe." Rumble, the mountain shook. The snow gave way, revealing 90,000 ancient bronze coffins hovering in the air, glowing with a cold, ghostly light. Back on the island, the massive dragon's soul began to shrink. Within seconds, it returned to its small form and dived back into my chest. Immediately, I felt a shift, not in my muscles, but in my mind. I closed my eyes and realized I could see inside my own consciousness. Before, my mind was a fog I couldn't penetrate. Now, it was a vast, silent void. It was empty, yet infinite, a terrifyingly beautiful space. I had reached the first stage of the soul realm, the void realm. I realized then that while the ancestral dragon nurtured my chi, this dragon pearl was meant to nurture my soul. Most cultivators never see their own soul in their entire lives, but in a single moment, I had surpassed them all. Now, I thought, I can finally handle the high-level inscriptions. But before I could test my new power, a piercing, shrill laugh echoed across the water. I looked up. A massive shape was gliding toward us from the horizon. It looked slow, but it covered miles in the blink of an eye. The creature landed on the rocky island with a heavy thud. It was a magnificent white phoenix, its feathers as pale as ice, without a single speck of color. except for its eyes, which glowed a deep, haunting blue. The bird's eyes glowed like blue jewels. It was massive, its wings spanning at least 30 feet across. It looked exactly like the divine phoenix from the ancient legends. It let out a shrill, piercing cry that echoed through the air. The sound was filled with such profound sorrow that it pulled at my heartstrings. Even the ancestral dragon soul inside me was moved, letting out a series of low, mournful whimpers in response. I wondered then if there was some ancient connection between this white phoenix and the dragon's soul dwelling within me. The phoenix glided down and landed right in front of Yahello. It leaned forward, its massive wings folding inward to wrap around her like a protective cloak. I watched as a single, crystal-clear drop rolled from the corner of the bird's eye. It landed directly on the center of Yahello's forehead. The drop didn't sit on her skin, it sank right in. My eyes narrowed. That wasn't a tear. It was blood, pure, holy, and incredibly potent. The phoenix pulled back, gave me one final look, and then beat its wings. It took off into the sky and vanished into the distance as quickly as it had arrived. Yahello stood there with a faint, shimmering mark on her brow. Her entire aura had changed, becoming as pure and holy as that drop of blood. She looked breathtaking, her hair dancing in the sea breeze, but I quickly shook the thought away. I had learned my lesson with women before. I wouldn't let a pretty face distract me again. Outside the Thundermarsh cave, the Peng family had been waiting for over a day. The sounds of battle had long since faded. One of the men approached Peng Fei, suggesting that I was probably dead and they should leave. Peng Fei snapped at him. He didn't care if I was dead or alive. He wanted proof. To him, my corpse was a golden ticket to the Ning family's favor. He ordered them to wait 3 full days. He wouldn't leave until he could hand my body over to Princess Ning. Back on the island, Yahello finished absorbing the phoenix blood. Her injuries had vanished, just like mine. But something else had happened. A pair of snow-white wings, about 10 feet wide, sprouted from her back. I stared at them in shock. In the Qi Kingdom, many people practiced the sword, but almost no one could actually fly. I looked at her and couldn't help but tease her. I asked if she was an angel now, or just a bird human. She glared at me, her face flushed with excitement. She didn't know if it was my luck or hers that led us to this miracle, but we were both stronger for it. We needed to find a way out of this endless sea. Yahello tucked her wings away, looking worried. I told her to stay calm. If there was a way in, there was a way out. I pulled out my spirit ink pen and took off my shirt. She turned away, blushing and asking what I was doing. I didn't answer. I focused all my energy on the air in front of me. I began to draw the giant spirit inscription. My pen moved with a life of its own. Within moments, the complex pattern was hovering in the void. Yahello watched, her eyes wide with realization. She was stunned that I could craft a spirit-grade inscription. Usually, only a true sword master had that kind of mental control. I didn't care about the praise. I turned my back to the floating ink and stepped into it. The moment the inscription touched my skin, it felt like a mountain had dropped on my shoulders. My spine groaned. My knees buckled. I forced myself to stand straight, sweat pouring down my face. The pain was agonizing. Every time the weight tried to crush me, I pushed back. Yahello watched me with a look of pure respect. She realized then that my power wasn't just luck. It was built on a foundation of sheer, stubborn will. The ancestral dragon soul woke up just long enough to swallow the excess energy from the inscription before falling back into a deep sleep. It needed more power to help me open my next sword pulse, but for now, I was stronger than I had ever been. I looked up at the sky. With my new soul vision, I could see it clearly. 200 feet up, there was a gate made of swirling clouds. It was the exit. I had seen it earlier, but I hadn't been ready to leave until I had the giant spirit inscription carved into my flesh. I needed that power to face the enemies waiting for me outside. I looked at Yahello and smiled. I told her the exit was right above us. She looked up, but saw nothing. To her, it was just empty air. I joked that she was the blind one because she couldn't see the door, and I was the lame one because I couldn't fly up there alone. We were going to have to work together to get out of this place. I pulled my clothes back on and looked at Yahello. It was time to leave. I told her I was ready to start training my fists, and she didn't hesitate. She grabbed my hand, her snow-white wings unfurling from her back with a soft rustle. With a powerful flap, she lifted us both into the air, heading toward the swirling cloud gate I pointed out. As we rose, a massive sound of rushing water filled the air. We looked down and froze in shock. The island we had been standing on wasn't an island at all. It was sinking. As the water cleared, I realized we had been resting on the back of a gargantuan black tortoise. The scale of it was impossible. Just as the beast vanished beneath the waves, we plunged into the cloud gate. The world blurred, and the portal vanished behind us. We dropped back into the darkness of the Thunder Marsh cave. White light flickered, the space trembled, and suddenly we were back. But we weren't alone. Before the light even faded, a deafening roar shook the stone walls. A massive shadow lunged at us. It was the purple-crowned thunder snake. It had been waiting. The snake's jaws snapped toward my head. My mind was still dizzy from the teleportation, but my instincts took over. I activated the yuan flying patterns on my feet. I moved like a mountain ape, twisting my body mid-air to dodge the strike. Miao Linglong took flight instantly, hovering out of reach. The snake hissed in fury after missing its mark. It whipped its head around and spat a bolt of lightning directly at me. I didn't dodge this time. I threw a punch. Giant spirit fist. Break. My knuckles went numb as I shattered the bolt into sparks. I used the momentum to leap forward, slamming my fist into the snake's flank. A thick black scale exploded under the impact. The force sent the massive serpent tumbling back several feet. It shrieked in pain. I didn't give it a second to breathe. I reached into my belt and flicked my wrist. 3 flying knives whistled through the air, diving straight into the snake's wide-open maw. It let out a horrific scream, thrashing wildly in the swamp mud. Lightning began firing blindly from its mouth, striking the cave walls and sending jagged rocks flying everywhere. It felt like the whole ceiling was about to cave in. But the damage was done. The knives had shredded its internals, and one had pierced its heart. Its movements grew sluggish. The lightning flickers died down. Finally, the great beast slumped into the mud, lifeless. Miao Linglong landed nearby, her eyes wide. She looked at the blood-soaked swamp and then at me. We had only been gone for a short time, but I had just killed a 200-year-old thunder snake. I could see the growing respect and a hint of fear in her gaze. I ignored it and rubbed my temples, trying to shake off the spatial vertigo. I held out my hand to her. I needed her sword. She tossed it over, and I walked toward the carcass. Outside the cave, the sudden sounds of battle had the Peng family on high alert. Peng Fei's face went pale. He realized I was still alive. But when the roaring stopped abruptly, a heavy silence fell over them. They knew the snake's final cries sounded like a defeat. Peng Fei realized something he didn't want to believe. He barked orders at his men, telling the crossbowmen to aim at the entrance and shoot anything that moved. 20 men stood ready, their previous confidence replaced by pure tension. Inside, I sliced open the snake's body. I found what I was looking for, a glowing golden core. These are rare in younger beasts, but common in century-old kings. This one was special. Tiny silver bolts of lightning danced inside it like miniature snakes. I used a knife to poke a small hole in the core. People thought the Peng family had forced me into this cave, but I would have come here anyway. My ancestors had a body cultivator who left behind a technique called the thunder tempering method. I wasn't strong enough to handle real lightning yet, but the energy inside a king-level core was the perfect substitute. Instead of feeding this to my ancestral dragon soul, I swallowed the lightning energy myself. The moment it hit my system, my body convulsed. Silver arcs of electricity raced under my skin, searing my muscles and bones. My face twisted in agony. Body cultivation isn't for the sane. Miao Linglong watched me, horrified. She had seen me endure the inscription, and now this. To her, I was being pathologically cruel to myself. But as she watched me endure the pain, I think I started to look a lot bigger in her eyes. 15 minutes later, the pain receded. I opened my eyes, and a faint glow flickered in my pupils. I was ready. Miao Linglong asked if this was why I came here. I nodded and looked toward the tunnel exit. I knew the Peng family was waiting. They likely had their flowing gold crossbows aimed right at the mouth of the cave. The tunnel was narrow. There was nowhere to hide once we stepped out. I had a plan. I walked back to the snake and carved off a long strip of its thick, black-scaled hide. I wrapped it around my torso like makeshift armor. I was covered in stinking, dark blood, looking like a monster from a nightmare. I told Miao Ling Long that the scales should stop their bolts. I would go out first to draw their fire while she waited for the all-clear. I approached the exit. I took a breath and threw 3 flying knives out into the daylight. Outside, Peng Fei flinched. He saw the knives, but didn't panic. He told his men to hold. He wasn't going to waste his bolts until he saw a person. I cursed under my breath. He wasn't falling for the bait. I wanted them to empty their crossbows so I could rush out during the reload. Since he wanted to play it smart, I had to do this the hard way. I set my jaw, activated my movement technique, and sprinted out of the darkness. Kill him, Peng Fei screamed. The air filled with the deadly whistle of incoming bolts. 3 streaks of golden light shot toward me the moment I broke cover. I twisted my body midair. 2 of the bolts whistled past, but the third slammed directly into my chest. The sheer force of the impact staggered me. I saw Peng Fei's eyes light up with a cruel joy. He knew those flowing gold bolts could punch through solid iron plates. A direct hit to the chest was a death sentence. But then his expression froze. I reached up, grabbed the bolt embedded in my chest, and pulled it out. I tossed it onto the ground like it was a piece of trash. There wasn't a single drop of blood on the tip. Bastard, Peng Fei hissed. He finally saw it. The shimmering, black snake skin wrapped around my torso. The bolt had been caught perfectly in the thick scales. He realized what it was immediately. In this place, only the hide of a purple thunder snake king could stop a flowing gold bolt. He actually killed the beast king? Peng Fei muttered, his voice trembling with disbelief. He didn't want to accept that a useless failure like me could pull off such a feat. Shoot again. Aim for his head. 3 more bolts streaked through the air. But I was out of the tunnel now. I had space to move. I activated my 8-monkey movement technique, blurring across the terrain. The bolts didn't even touch the hem of my clothes. I moved like a predator, closing the distance between me and the Peng family guards in seconds. Peng Fei's face darkened. He realized the crossbows were useless now, but he still had 20 men with him, all at least level 5 sword disciples. In his mind, 20 blades were enough to turn me into mincemeat. He thought that since my sword soul was broken, my body cultivation couldn't be that advanced yet. Kill him, he screamed. Once he slows down, hack him to pieces. The Peng family guards surged forward. A tall young man led the charge, his blade glowing with a blood-red light as he aimed a lethal strike at my skull. The Peng family's blood shadow sword style. I muttered with a cold snort. I stepped to the side, letting the blade graze the air beside me. My Great Spirit tattoo flared to life. I poured everything into a single punch. The Great Spirit fist. My fist slammed into the young man's chest with the sound of a breaking drum. The force caved in his ribcage instantly. He flew backward through the air and hit the ground in a heap, motionless. The rest of the guards froze, gasping in horror. That was Peng Shun, a level 6 sword disciple, killed in one punch. Those who were weaker than him suddenly found their legs felt like lead. Even Peng Fei, a level 8 sword disciple, looked like he'd seen a ghost. I didn't give them time to think. I stepped in and swung again, my fist shattering the skull of a middle-aged man nearby. Under the power of the Great Spirit Fist, these people were like glass. A few managed to land hits on my body, but their blades just slid off the snake scales. In less than 5 minutes, more than half of them were dead. What was supposed to be an ambush had turned into a slaughter. Before the lightning tempering, my punch carried 3,000 pounds of force. Now, it was 5,000. I wasn't just fighting them. I was a tiger in a pen of sheep. Retreat! Peng Fei screamed. These were the elites of the Peng family's younger generation. If they all died here, his family was finished. The survivors turned and bolted. I didn't let them go that easily. I flicked my wrist, sending 3 flying knives whistling through the air. 3 more bodies hit the dirt. Run behind the trees. Peng Fei yelled, his face pale. Use the trunks for cover. Out of 20 men, only 6 or 7 were left. I had no intention of letting Peng Fei escape. The Peng family had tried to kick us while we were down. Leaving them alive was just asking for more trouble. The old Yihong was kind and easily manipulated. But the new me? When I get ruthless, I even scare myself. Peng Fei was fast, and the remaining guards realized they couldn't outrun me. They stopped, turning back to face me with desperate eyes. They were going to buy him time. These were the strongest of the bunch, level 7 sword disciples, with one nearly at level 8. Fighting them barehanded wasn't hard, but it was time-consuming. They were fighting with suicidal madness, throwing everything into their blood shadow and martyr sword styles. A rain of blades forced me to focus on dodging to protect my exposed head. By the time I finished the last of them, Peng Fei was gone. Miles away, Peng Fei was gasping for air, running until his lungs burned. He glanced back and saw I wasn't behind him. He let out a shaky breath of relief. "Just wait, Yi Hong," he spat, his voice trembling with rage. "Once I get back to leeching, once our contact from the Southern Prison Academy arrives, I'll wipe out your entire clan." The contact from the Southern Prison Academy. A cold, melodic voice drifted down from above. Peng Fei skidded to a halt and looked up. A young girl with a pair of brilliant white wings was descending from the sky. It was Miao Linglong. Peng Fei stared, completely stunned. He had never seen a human with wings before. "Are you a person or a demon?" Miao Linglong smiled playfully. "Have you ever seen a demon as beautiful as me?" Peng Fei finally recognized her as the girl who had followed me into the marsh. "What do you want? I have no grudge against you." "I don't want anything," she said, landing lightly on the path. "But someone else doesn't want you to leave. So, I have to stop you." "You think you can stop me?" Peng Fei roared. He lunged forward, his sword erupting with a freezing frost. This was his Twin Peaks sword soul, a power that slowed down anyone caught in its chill. But Miao Linglong was a level 9 sword disciple. After absorbing the White Phoenix blood, her strength had reached a terrifying level. She didn't even draw a weapon. As the sword lunged toward her, she simply thrust her palm forward. A swirl of deep blue energy formed in her hand, catching the blade in a localized vortex. She gave her wrist a slight flick. The sword shattered into 3 pieces. Peng Fei's jaw dropped. To break high-grade steel with a bare hand usually required the Sword Sea realm, yet this girl was clearly still a disciple. The Peng family had been spying on the Yi family for years, but they had no record of a powerhouse like her. Suddenly, his eyes drifted to a small emblem on her sleeve, partially hidden by blood. His heart skipped a beat as he realized who she really was. I looked closely at the emblem on her sleeve. It was a bamboo design, partially obscured by blood, but I knew it instantly. It was the mark of the Southern Jade Academy. Peng Fei's eyes lit up like a drowning man catching a floating branch. "Senior sister," he cried out, his voice cracking with desperation. "I am Peng Fei. My sister, Peng Ting, is also a student at the Southern Jade Academy. Her mentor is the great Master Gu Zhao. He's actually coming to visit the Peng family in just a few days." Miao Linglong's eyes narrowed slightly. She knew the name. Gu Zhao was a teacher at the academy, a level 9 sword master who was only a single step away from becoming a great sword master. Yes, exactly. Peng Fei nodded frantically, thinking he had finally found a trump card to make her back down. But Miao Linglong's next words crushed his hope instantly. "What does that have to do with me?" she asked, her face expressionless. "He's not my teacher." Suddenly, a sharp laugh echoed from the trees behind them. "So, this Master Gu Zhao is the one your family hired to deal with my Yi family, right?" Peng Fei's face went pale. I stepped out from the shadows, covered in blood but perfectly calm. "Your family wanted to take my head to Prince Ning's mansion to claim a reward," I said, looking him in the eye. "Well, my head is right here. Come and take it." "Yi Hong, don't push your luck," Peng Fei snarled. When he entered these mountains, he was full of arrogance. Now, he was backed into a corner like a rat. "Pushing my luck?" I let out a cold laugh. "You brought 20 men to hunt me down, and now you're claiming I'm the one being unfair? Your definition of fairness is truly unique." Peng Fei's face twisted, but he couldn't find the words to argue. "Enough," I said, my voice turning cold. "I don't have time for your nonsense. If you want to live, tell me the route and schedule for the Peng family's medicinal herb shipments." The Peng family's power in Li City was built on their control of 2/3 of the herb trade. Every few months, a massive shipment came in from outside. If I wanted to cripple them, I had to hit their wallet. "You're targeting our shipments?" Peng Fei gasped. "You're trying to exterminate my entire family," I smiled thinly. Why shouldn't I target your business? Forget it. Peng Fei snapped, his eyes flashing with resolve. He knew that if those shipments were lost, it would be a fatal blow to his family's survival. Fine. I started walking toward him. I didn't expect you to talk so easily anyway. I pulled out a flying dagger and let the light glint off the blade. Peng Fei stared at the weapon, trembling. In the past, he would have never believed I'd actually kill him. But now, in his eyes, I was a god of death who wouldn't blink at taking a life. As I got closer, his resolve shattered. Wait. I'll talk. I'll tell you. Oh, I sneered. Now you want to talk? Too bad. I've lost interest. Peng Fei panicked. Seeing me raise the dagger, he screamed, Wait. Besides the shipping routes, I'll tell you a secret. A family secret. I paused, the dagger hovering in the air. A secret? My family. We found a map to a hidden realm, he blurted out, terrified I'd lose interest again. My father said it likely belonged to the god of war from the Great Han Dynasty. My heart skipped a beat. The Great Han Dynasty had lasted 800 years, ruling over 9 vassal states and billions of people. But only one man ever earned the title God of War, Han Xian. He was a legend, the one who had trapped and killed the king of Chu. The map is with my father, Peng Fei said quickly, seeing my interest. Let me go back, and I'll steal it for you. I swear. I smiled at him, my expression unreadable. Is that all? Peng Fei froze. He couldn't believe I wasn't more excited about a god of war's legacy. And the shipping routes. Our herbs come from U-City. We don't just use the main roads. We use 13 different combinations of land and water routes. The path is chosen at random, and even the transporters don't know which one they're taking until 3 days before the trip. I frowned. The Peng family was as cunning as foxes. No wonder they were so successful. Their security was airtight. When is the next shipment? I asked. And how does your father notify the transporters? In 10 days, Peng Fei replied instantly. Each of the 13 routes has a different leader. Once my father makes his choice, he sends a messenger hawk to the specific person in charge. A rabbit with 3 burrows, Miao Linglong muttered, impressed by the complexity. I realized then that the Peng family couldn't be underestimated. They had survived this long for a reason. Yi Hong, let me go, Peng Fei pleaded. I'll steal the map and tell you my father's plans in advance. Just let me live. I nodded slowly. Fine. You can go. Miao Linglong looked at me in shock. This wasn't the ruthless Yi Hong she had come to know. Peng Fei was also stunned, standing there frozen. If you don't leave now, I might change my mind, I said, sounding impatient. I'm going. Peng Fei scrambled to his feet and turned to run. As he turned his back, a smug, mocking grin spread across his face. He thought I was a fool. He thought he had played me. But a split second later, a cold flash crossed his vision. He felt a sharp, icy sting in the back of his neck. The flying dagger buried itself deep. Peng Fei's eyes widened with shock and regret before he collapsed face first into the dirt. Dead. I knew you wouldn't let him go, Miao Linglong said, her voice calm. That's more like you. I didn't answer. I walked over to the body and searched his clothes until I found a small blue vial. I opened it, and a faint, sweet aroma filled the air. Inside were 3 pea-sized blue pills, radiating a dense energy. Lower-grade spirit rank. Pulse-filling pills, I whispered. These were rare and expensive, used by cultivators to break through to the 9th pulse. I wondered if they would help my ancestral dragon soul. I tucked the pills away and looked at our clothes. We were both drenched in blood and filth. We need to clean up, I said. We won't even make it through the city gates looking like this. I know a place, Miao Linglong said. She had been bothered by the smell of blood for days. When I was being chased by Prince Ning's men, I saw a valley with a stream. A valley? I looked up. You must mean Parting Valley. Miao Linglong frowned, a hint of sadness touching her face. That's a melancholy name. It's nothing special, I said, turning to head in that direction. Just a place where some sentimental poet once said goodbye to a fox demon. I started running, leaving the bodies behind. In my world, there was no room for sentiment, only survival. Is love just a bunch of sentimental nonsense? I muttered to myself. Miao Linglong followed close behind as we pushed deeper into the wilderness. Any demonic beast that crossed my path didn't stand a chance. I killed them with a single punch. Unless I ran into a beast with 80 or 90 years of cultivation, I didn't even need to use my giant spirit god fist. I moved fast, killing everything in my way. After about an hour, we reached a sunken valley. A stream flowed through the center, surrounded by lush green trees. The water was deep, clear as glass, and I could see fish and shrimp darting between the rocks at the bottom. I didn't hesitate. I stripped off my bloody snakeskin gear and dove straight in. The cold water hit my skin like a shock. I swam to the bottom, then burst back through the surface with a loud roar. "That feels amazing," I shouted. On the bank, Miao Linglong pouted. I could tell she wanted to jump in too, but if she did, her clothes would be soaked through. She looked embarrassed just thinking about it. "Hey, are you done yet?" she called out after a while. She was getting impatient. "Don't be so selfish, thinking only about yourself." I ignored her and dove back under. The water was icy and refreshing. Miao Linglong glared at my underwater silhouette before giving up. She sat on a smooth green boulder by the edge and dipped her bare feet into the stream, a look of relief finally crossing her face. Suddenly, I felt something. I broke the surface, frowning, then dove back down immediately. This time, I wasn't swimming. I focused on a large stone slab buried deep under the silt and pebbles. I gripped the edges and hauled it out of the muck. I climbed onto the bank, clutching a square stone slab about 3 feet wide. Miao Linglong stared at it, confused. To her, it looked like a common rock, but I could feel something unusual radiating from it. "What's wrong with you?" she asked. I didn't answer. My eyes were locked on the stone. I sensed a strange, ancient energy trapped inside. I laid it on the ground and slammed my palm down. The stone didn't even budge. I growled and channeled the power of the giant spirit god fist. 5,000 pounds of force crashed into the slab. Crack! A web of fissures spread across the surface, and a faint golden light leaked through the gaps. "I knew it," I whispered. I punched it again. The stone exploded. A brilliant, blinding golden light erupted from the center, filling the valley. "What is that?" Miao Linglong cried out. She shielded her eyes, unable to look. The light was solemn and pure. I felt a wave of mysterious power wash over us. In that moment, I heard a faint, divine sound echoing in my mind. Beside me, Miao Linglong gasped. Her soul had just been cleansed by the sound, pushing her past a bottleneck. She had reached the void realm. I squinted, activating my insight pattern and focusing all my soul power into my eyes. Inside the golden glow, I saw a symbol spinning in the air, half picture, half text. These were characters from the early Sword Spirit era, the transition period after the Imperial Age. "Is the legend actually true?" I muttered. "What legend?" Miao Linglong asked, her eyes still squeezed shut. "The love between a man and a fox," I said. "The parting in the valley." I ignored everything else and memorized the symbols as they flew past. With my soul reaching the void realm, my memory was near perfect. A few moments later, the light faded and the symbols vanished. Miao Linglong opened her eyes. They looked brighter, more spirited than before. "You broke through?" I asked with a smirk. "I did," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "Improving soul strength is much harder than cultivating sword chi. I'm at the early stage of the void realm now. What about you? Are you at the middle stage?" "Not yet," I shook my head. "But I'm close." "So what was that legend?" she asked, leaning in. "What was that light? Why did it help our souls?" I started washing the blood off my snakeskin armor as I spoke. There are many versions of the story, but they all say a monk from the Pure Lands once saved a wounded fox demon. The fox fell in love with him, but the monk was devoted to his path. Once she healed, he brought her here to send her back to the mountains. He wrote a volume of scripture for her to help her cultivation so she could eventually reach enlightenment. Miao Linglong nodded slowly. "So that scripture was sealed in the stone?" "I think so." I finished cleaning the snakeskin. It was incredibly tough. Even my best blade couldn't easily pierce it. "I'm taking this back to make armor. There's enough here for 5 sets. I rolled up the skin and looked at her. "I'm leaving now. Stay safe." "Wait," she blurted out. I turned around. "Something else." She looked down, her face turning red. Can you help me? I want to wash up too." I stared at her, my expression dead serious. I've never given a woman a bath before. What? She froze. Then her face exploded in a mix of shame and rage. Who asked you to bathe me? I want you to stand guard nearby, so no one comes close. Learn how to speak properly. I rubbed the back of my neck, feeling a bit awkward. You scared me. I thought you wanted me to scrub your back. I'm not that kind of guy. Miao Linglong was speechless. She looked like she wanted to scream. You're not that kind of guy? Like it's a burden to look at me? Am I that ugly? She was fuming, but she didn't walk away. Just hurry up, I said, turning my back and walking a short distance away. While she was occupied, I pulled out the 3 pulse-filling pills I'd taken from Peng Fei and fed them to my ancestral dragon soul. The dragon swallowed them greedily. These refined pills were far more effective than raw beast cores. Don't you dare look, Miao Linglong shouted from the stream. I heard the splash of water as she finally stepped in. Once we were both clean, I didn't linger. I headed straight back to Li City. My original plan was to train in the mountains until the Southern Prison Academy opened, but the news about the Peng family changed everything. They had hired a peak swordmaster to wipe us out. I reached the Yi family estate and found my father, Yi Zheng. His face was dark with anger. The Peng family has wanted to destroy us for a long time, he said, his voice cold. The only reason they hesitated before was because your aunt was protecting us. Your talent was too high, my father said, his voice heavy. They were afraid to move against us. But now your aunt has been sent to the new frontier, and your soul is crippled. They won't miss this chance. He paused, his brow furrowed. I just didn't expect them to hire a master from the Southern Prison Academy. Hunger, how did you escape? Are you hurt? My mother, Sulan, rushed over, her eyes scanning me for wounds. Her only concern was my safety. I'm fine, Mom, I said, shaking my head. I didn't give them the details of how I'd escaped the Peng family's pursuit. Telling them I had killed over 20 people single-handedly would sound impossible, especially for someone whose sword soul was supposed to be destroyed. Dad, take this, I said, handing the purple-crowned thunder snake skin to Yi Zheng. It should be enough to make 4 or 5 sets of armor. My father spread the skin out. His pupils shrank instantly. Is this the skin of a purple-crowned thunder snake? 100-year-old demon king. He looked at me, stunned. Did you kill it? I shook my head, keeping my secrets hidden. I found it on the road. Someone else must have killed it. The shock in his eyes faded, but suspicion remained. He knew I was hiding things, but he didn't push. He probably thought the pressure of my crippled soul was enough for me to handle. He didn't want to add to my burden. A relieved smile finally touched his face. I'll handle the Peng family. Don't worry about them. Just get some rest. I nodded and agreed, but my mind was already moving. Meanwhile, in the Peng family hall, Peng Wancheng was livid. What? That little waste from the Yi family is back? He roared at the servant. That means Fair failed? Send men to the Thunder Marsh Mountains immediately. Tell the young master to return to the city. Before the servant could leave, another figure stumbled into the hall, trembling with fear. What happened? Why the panic? Peng Wancheng snapped. He had no patience for anyone in the family except his son, Peng Fei. To him, the rest were untalented trash. Uncle, brother Peng Fei, he's dead. The young man collapsed to his knees, wailing. Peng Wancheng froze. He stood up slowly, his voice sounding like cracking ice. Say that again. He was killed, the young man cried. Peng Wancheng slumped back into his chair, the strength leaving his body. It took a long time before he could speak again. Who did it? I don't know, the messenger stammered. But he was killed by a flying dagger. It's exactly like the ones used by that waste from the Yi family. Yi Hong. Peng Wancheng's eyes turned bloodshot. I will make your entire family pay for my son's life. Back at the Yi estate, I stared at the moonlight through my window. I wasn't tired. I knew the Peng family would have found the body by now. I had purposely left that flying dagger behind. I wanted them angry. An angry enemy is dangerous, but they are also prone to making mistakes. If they really had a 9th-level swordmaster backing them, we couldn't win a head-on fight. I had to lure them into a trap and strike when they slipped up. But first, I needed to crack the code. I was obsessed with the strange symbols I'd memorized from the green stone slab. If they really belonged to the legendary Pure Land monk, they were priceless. I got out of bed and headed toward the family library, I knocked softly on the door. Uncle Lee. A shuffling sound came from inside. A hunched old man with a limp opened the door, holding a dim oil lamp. Young Master Hong? Uncle Lee, I need to find some books, I said, bowing politely. The old man's cloudy eyes softened. Out of all the youngsters, I was the only one who showed him respect. It's cold out. Come in. He looked at me with pity, likely thinking about my lost sword soul. Do we have any books on ancient scripts? I asked. He paused, setting the lamp on the table. Our books are mostly about cultivation techniques and sword styles. We don't have much else. My heart sank. But then he continued. However, I've seen a book on ancient characters before. I still remember some of it. Are you trying to recognize specific words? I felt a spark of hope. I grabbed a pen and paper and quickly wrote down the 1,000 symbols I'd memorized, intentionally scrambling their order. As he looked at the page, the old man's eyes sharpened. Young master, your soul has reached the void realm? I was stunned. How did you know? He chuckled, moving the lamp over the paper. I watched you grow up. Your memory was always good, but remembering a coherent story is one thing. Recalling 1,000 random, disconnected symbols perfectly? You can't do that without reaching the void realm. I felt a chill. Everyone thought Uncle Lee was just a crippled old man with no cultivation. How did he know so much? I looked at his hunched back and his bad leg, wondering what his real story was. Go to sleep, young master, he said quietly. Come back tomorrow morning. I thanked him and left. As I disappeared into the night, the old man's cloudy eyes suddenly flashed with a terrifying golden light. Master, he whispered to the empty room. The Emperor's lineage, there is hope. While I slept, Miao Linglong finally reached the Southern Prison Academy, hundreds of miles away. It was the highest institution in the region, housing over 100,000 disciples. She stood outside a private courtyard and called out. Teacher. Linglong, a sharp, feminine voice replied. It's late. Why are you here? I have a request, Miao Linglong said urgently. I need you to help me save someone. He's in Li City. I couldn't wait a moment longer. I rushed straight to the Yi family library. To my absolute surprise, Uncle Lee had already finished. He had translated all 1,386 ancient symbols into modern text. I grabbed the manuscript and sprinted back to my room, my heart hammering against my ribs. The title stared back at me, the 1,000-leaf formless seal. I realized then why fox demons always progressed faster than other beasts. They possessed this soul-refining secret technique. Even though I usually kept a cool head, I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The history of this technique was legendary. It was said to come from the Pure Land divine monk, a man who was treated like a living god. Anything he left behind had to be world-changing. With this technique and the dragon pearl in my possession, my soul power was going to skyrocket. I immediately sat down and began to meditate on the contents. As the ancient words flowed through my mind, a vision started to take shape. I saw the silhouette of a monk appearing in the void of my consciousness. His hands moved with blinding speed, weaving complex gestures and signs. His voice echoed in my mind, chanting ancient mantras. This was the first technique of the set, the formless divine pillar seal. It was incredibly difficult, even though my soul had reached the mid-stage of the void realm. Giving me memory and intelligence far beyond a normal person, I couldn't track the movements. I couldn't even memorize the sequence of the hand signs, let alone replicate them. I tried again, and again. I hit a wall immediately, but I wasn't the type to give up. I dove back into meditation, pushing myself to the limit. Yet, failure followed failure. This was actually harder than branding my skin with inscriptions. An entire day passed, and I hadn't made a single inch of progress. Did I get something wrong? I asked myself. I started to reflect on every step. I didn't have much experience with soul cultivation, and the Yi family didn't have any experts I could ask. Then, a face popped into my mind. Uncle Lee. I headed back to the library for the third time. When I walked in, Uncle Lee looked at me with a confused expression. Young Master Hong, back again? Uncle Lee, I said, leaning in. I wanted to ask you about soul cultivation. He gave me a small, humble smile. Young Master, I'm just a useless old man. I don't know anything about cultivation. I'm afraid I can't help you. I didn't let it go. I kept my voice steady and lowered it. Uncle Lee, to be honest, those symbols I gave you, They were for a soul cultivation technique. I've been trying to practice it, but I can't even get past the front door. I was hoping you could give me a pointer. He chuckled softly. Young master, I don't know the ways of warriors. But I do know one principle. A strong body requires hard, physical grinding. But an immortal soul? Perhaps it requires a clear and empty mind. A clear and empty mind. The words hit me like a lightning bolt. It was like walking through a pitch-black night and suddenly seeing a lantern. Soul cultivation wasn't like body tempering. You couldn't just force it through sheer repetition. It was about realization, and realization required stillness. I needed to reach a state where my mind was as calm as a mirror. Thank you, Uncle Lee, I said, bowing deeply to him. I didn't waste another second and ran back to my room. I sat down and began to strip away every distracting thought. I pushed down my impatience and my anxiety about the future until I felt completely still. Once my heart was quiet, I began the meditation again. This time it worked. The formless divine pillar seal began to click. I started practicing the first hand gesture, and for the first time, I felt the energy move. While I was locked away, the mood in the Yi family main hall was grim. My father, Yi Zhong, was meeting with the core members, including my uncle Yi Xiangtian and Yi Qingyun. The Peng family is losing their patience, my father said, his voice heavy. They're getting ready to move against us. Peng Wanqing thinks we're an easy target because of our recent troubles, Yi Xiangtian spat. He has no idea you've reached the level of swordmaster. It's not that simple, my father sighed. They've hired a grade 9 swordmaster from the Southern Prison Academy. His strength is far beyond mine. And with my sister Yili being sent to the immortal sacrifice, she won't be back to help us. The room went silent. My aunt was the strongest member of our family. Without her, we were vulnerable. Damn it, Yi Qingyun shouted, slamming his fist on the table. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. Even if we go down, we'll take half of them with us. Calm down, Qingyun, my father said, gesturing for him to sit. Against a grade 9 swordmaster, suicide charges won't work. We have to be smart. My father then shared the intel I had beaten out of Peng Fei. The Peng family has a massive shipment of medicinal herbs coming from Yu City to Li City in a few days. Uncle, I want you to handle the ambush. Yi Xiangtian nodded immediately. Wise move. We don't hit them head on. We bleed them dry from the shadows. Qingyun, my father continued, you're in charge of the city defenses. Secure the weapon shops, the silk mills, and the restaurants. If they try to cause a riot, I want them neutralized. He then handed out 5 sets of armor made from the skin of the purple-crowned thunder snake I had killed. These can stop even the sharpest blades. Wear them. As everyone left to carry out their orders, only my father remained in the hall. The words grade 9 sword master weighed on him like a mountain, but he couldn't show his fear to the others. My mother, Sulan, walked in and placed a hand on his shoulder. You're carrying too much. It's the burden of a patriarch, he replied. Then his expression changed. Sulan, I need you to do something. Tell Hong he needs to leave for the Southern Prison Academy early. He wanted me safe. He knew the Yi family might not survive the coming weeks. But my mother shook her head. If the academy couldn't even protect Yili, what makes you think Hong will be safe there? Besides, his talent is supposedly gone. They won't even let him in without an entrance exam. I thought of that, my father said. I want him to take that item and find Yili's teacher. She might protect him for the sake of the past. My mother looked at him sadly. Do you really think our son will agree to run away while his family fights for its life? My father went quiet. He knew my personality better than anyone. I'd never leave. Then there is only one other choice, he said. We send a messenger with the item to find her teacher. We ask her to come here and help the Yi family. In my room, I had no idea about their plans. I was completely immersed in the 1,000-leaf formless seal. My soul was growing stronger by the minute, and the power of the divine pillar seal was starting to hum within me. I could feel it. I was becoming something more than just a body cultivator. I was on the verge of breaking through to the late voidless realm. For most sword cultivators, reaching this level of soul power required stepping over the threshold of a great sword master. That meant my soul was now as strong as a grade 9 sword master. Becoming one wasn't easy. Even in the Southern Prison Academy, one of the 5 greatest institutions in the country, grade 9 sword masters were rare. I wanted to test my new power. I focused, pushing my soul's strength out of my mind like a massive, invisible web. It spread in every direction. The further it went, the more it drained me, but the results were incredible. Everything it touched appeared in my mind like a painting unfolding. I reached my limit at a 5-meter radius. Within that circle, I saw everything. The houses, the grass, the trees, the rocks. I could even see 3 feet underground. I saw a mouse hiding in a wall and an earthworm digging through the dirt. I finally understood why high-level cultivators always seem to know their enemy's next move. It was all about the soul. I kept the pulse active and walked out of my room. The mental map shifted as I moved through the corridors and out onto the street. The city was loud. Vendors were shouting, children were laughing, and the sounds of cooking, blacksmithing, and music clashed together in a chaotic symphony. As long as the noise was within 10 meters, it appeared in my mind. If I focused, I could hear a single whisper from 5 meters away as clearly as if they were speaking into my ear. I walked toward a restaurant across from the Yi family estate. For strangers sat by the window. They wore plain clothes, but their eyes were too sharp, and their breathing carried the rhythmic strength of seasoned sword cultivators. They were at least grade 6 sword trainees. Every few seconds, they glanced toward my home or shifted their eyes toward me. They thought they were being subtle. To me, they were glowing targets. "The trash is out," one of them whispered. "Watch him," another replied. "Note who he talks to and what he says. Report everything to the patriarch. The master has already set the trap. Once Master Guzhou arrives in 2 days, we pull the net. Everything the Yi family owns will belong to the Peng family." I caught every word. I recognized that name. Peng Shi. "Peng Shi," the leader whispered, looking at a man with a blue birthmark. "I'm counting on your lip-reading skills to catch their conversation." A trap? Lip-reading? I felt a cold smile tug at my lips. I turned around and headed back into the estate. A few minutes later, I walked back out, this time with my father, Yizhong. "Father," I said, intentionally lowering my voice as we neared the restaurant. "That shipment is passing through Evil Dragon Mountain. We only have 3 grade 5 sword trainees guarding it. Are you sure it's safe? Our family's fate depends on it." My father caught on instantly. "It's a massive risk, but that's why it'll work," he replied loudly enough for the spies to focus. "No one will believe we'd guard a piece of profound crystal iron with such a weak escort. That iron is enough to forge 30 high-grade weapons. If it arrives, our crisis is over." I watched through my mental sense as the man with the birthmark focused on our lips, his eyes widening. Back at the Peng estate, Peng Wanqing burst into a manic laugh when he got the report. "Yizhong, you old fool. You're actually trying to move profound crystal iron with 3 guards? If I don't destroy you now, even the heavens will spit on me." He didn't hesitate, ordering 20 elites to move out immediately toward Wulong Mountain. Inside the Yi family courtyard, I stood with my father. "Father, the Peng family will send their best to make sure they get that iron. We need to send our own experts to ambush them and wipe them out." My father nodded, looking at me with pride. "Using their own greed against them, it's a good move, Hong. If we kill their elites, the Peng family will never recover." "We have to move fast," I said. "But before we go, I need to kill those 4 spies. We can't let them signal back that we're moving our main force." My father hesitated. "Hong, listen, until the Peng family shows their hand completely, we can't start a massacre in the city. The imperial court won't tolerate local powers disrupting the peace. They'll investigate any murders." "I understand," I said, clenching my fist. "I won't cause a scene. Leave the 4 of them to me. I'll handle it quietly." I walked back out into the noise of the street. The 4 spies were no longer at the restaurant, but they hadn't gone far. I released my soul power. Within seconds, I found them. They had split up. One was in a grocery store, one in a weapon shop, and 2 were loitering in the crowd. They spotted me the moment I appeared. I could see the smug sneers on their faces. They thought I was a desperate failure clinging to a piece of iron. They had no idea they were the ones being hunted. I sat down at a roadside noodle stall and ordered a bowl. I ate slowly, my soul power locked onto their positions. They thought they were hidden. I wished my soul strength was high enough to kill all 4 at once, but I could only take down one at a time with a direct soul strike. I decided to start with the leader. I withdrew my soul web, focusing every ounce of energy into a single point. I shifted my body to face the man in black. He didn't realize anything was wrong until our eyes met. To him, my eyes suddenly looked like two bottomless abysses, hiding something ancient and terrifying. "What's this?" he muttered, shaking his head. "A hallucination?" He blinked and tried to stare me down again. That was his last mistake. The man in black looked straight into my eyes, but he didn't see a helpless boy. He saw two sharp, cold swords flying out from the depths of my pupils. These blades were formed of pure soul energy, invisible to everyone else, but lethal to him. His eyes widened in terror. He sensed the danger, but it was already too late. In his vision, the world turned pitch black, as if he had been plunged into a bottomless abyss. He saw those two spectral swords flash forward, shredding his body into 1,000 pieces. Of course, his physical body remained untouched. It was his soul that I had just butchered. It happened in a heartbeat. To the crowds on the street, the man simply shuddered for a second and then collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. He didn't make a sound. There wasn't a single scratch on him. Amidst the noise of the bustling market, no one even noticed he was dead. I didn't stop there. My soul power surged again, locking onto the man with the birthmark. He went down just as quietly. The remaining two spies finally sensed something was wrong. They looked around, confused, wondering why their comrades had suddenly fainted. They rushed over to help, but they didn't make it 5 steps before they both crumpled to the ground, one after the other. 4 elite spies, dead in less than 5 breaths. I felt a bead of sweat roll down my forehead. Using the Godgrit seal took a toll on me. I wiped my brow, tossed a few copper coins on the table for my noodles, and walked away. "Hunger," my father's voice echoed in my head, filled with disbelief. "I didn't realize your soul had become strong enough to manifest physical attacks." As a first-level sword master, even my father, Yi Xiangtian, hadn't reached the late stages of the Void Realm in soul strength. I nodded, pinching the bridge of my nose to fight off the sudden wave of exhaustion. "Father, send our men to Dragon Mountain immediately," I said. "I need to rest." "Go," he replied firmly. "You've done your part. Leave the rest to me." While I retreated to recover, dozens of Yi family elites mounted their horses and thundered out of the gates, heading straight for Dragon Mountain. Meanwhile, in a tavern not far from our estate, 2 women stood by a window, watching the whole scene. One was older, dressed in snow-white robes with an air of cold elegance. The other was younger, her beauty striking and refined. It was Miao Linglong and her teacher, Wu Qingxue. "That was a soul attack," Wu Qingxue whispered, her dark eyes narrowing. "A 3rd-level sword trainee at the late stage of the Void Realm. It seems the rumors of his ancestral dragon soul being crippled were a blessing in disguise." Back in my room, I sat in silence, feeling the emptiness in my mind. With my current strength, I could fire off 2 Godgrit seals safely. A 3rd would push me to the brink of collapse. I needed to break through to the next level of the Void Realm. If I could do that, I could strike 5 times without breaking a sweat. As I meditated, the battle at Dragon Mountain erupted. It wasn't even close. Our 40 experts ambushed the 20 Peng family elites in the valley. In less than half an hour, the Peng family force was completely wiped out. When the news reached Peng Wansheng, he was sitting in his hall, dreaming of power. He had imagined using the black gold iron to win the favor of Prince Ning and rise to the top of the imperial court. But when he heard that 20 more of his best men, including his own son earlier at the marsh, were dead, he collapsed into his chair. His face turned the color of ash. 40 experts lost in a matter of days. It was a fatal blow to his family's foundation. But we weren't celebrating yet. My father returned with grim news. Yi Li's teacher, a powerful master we had hoped would help us, had refused to come. Even worse, he kept the gift we sent him, the black yellow pen. He took the treasure and refused to help. I growled, my blood boiling. The black yellow pen was a sacred heirloom. My current pen could only draw basic inscriptions, but the black yellow pen could create profound level marks. It was priceless. "It's my fault," my father sighed, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I thought he would help for the sake of his student. I forgot that in this world, people only kick you when you're down. Remember this, Hunger, never rely on others." Only your own strength is absolute. I gripped my fists tight. I'll get that pin back, father. I promise. But the immediate threat was still looming. Peng Wanqing still had a 9th-level sword master on his side. The sheer soul pressure from a master of that level could crush an ordinary warrior before the fight even started. We had 1 day left. I spent every second of that day locked in my room, practicing the 1,000-leaf seal. As a 3rd-level sword trainee with a body cultivator's strength, I could maybe hold my own against a 5th-level practitioner. But a 9th-level sword master? It was impossible. My only window of hope was my soul. If I could force a breakthrough to the late stage of the Void Realm tonight, I might have a chance to suppress him. The next morning, the sun rose over a gray, suffocating sky. My father, Yi Xiangtian, and the rest of the family elders gathered in the main hall. Every face was grim. Today was the day that would decide if the Yi family lived or died. Today was the day that decided who owned the city, the Yi family or the Ping family. Most people in the city already had their bets on the Pangs. It wasn't because the Peng family was naturally stronger. It was because everyone knew they had recruited a 9th-level sword master. In a place like Li City, a master of that level was an invincible god. Unicorns cleared the busy streets, their hooves thundering against the stone. Peng Wanqing led the way at the head of the pack, looking like he'd already won. After the humiliations I'd dealt his family, he was hungry for blood. 2 carriages followed him, protected by his men as they charged toward our front gates. I heard the whispers from the crowds lining the road. The Yi family is finished, they muttered. The ancestral dragon soul brought them glory, and now it's brought their ruin. They knew our strongest expert, Yi Li, had been sent away on a suicide mission. They looked at the lead carriage with fear, wondering about the power of the teacher inside. The sky turned a suffocating gray. Thunder rolled in the distance. A storm was brewing, and the air felt heavy with the coming slaughter. Inside one of the trailing carriages, Miao Linglong watched the gates of my family home. She turned to her teacher, Wu Qingxue, asking when they should intervene. Wu Qingxue looked at her with a complicated expression. She had never seen her student care so much about someone's safety. Don't be in such a hurry, Wu Qingxue said with a calm smile. You must help only at the most critical moment. That is how you ensure someone remembers their debt to you forever. Besides, I want to see just how much potential this boy really has. Miao Linglong nodded silently. She always listened to her teacher. Inside our main hall, Peng Wanqing stood with a look of absolute triumph. He scanned my family members with pure contempt. A man and a woman stood by his side. The woman, Peng Ting, was tall and arrogant in her pale blue dress. But the man was the true threat. He was built like a mountain, his eyes narrowed, with a faint golden light shimmering around his ears. Every eye in the Yi family was fixed on him. We all saw the mark on his chest. It was a 9-leaf purple bamboo. In the Southern Prison Academy, that leaf count meant only one thing. He was a 9th-level sword master. His name was Gu Zhao. The mere weight of his presence made it hard to breathe. Peng Wanqing, my father, Yi Zheng said. His voice was low and heavy with frost. You bring this many people into my home. What is the meaning of this? I'm not here to waste words with you. Peng Wanqing sneered. From this moment on, the Yi family is leaving Li City. My family is taking over everything you own. The jade cup in my father's hand shattered into dust. Based on what? Based on the fact that my daughter is a 5th-level sword practitioner, Peng Wanqing mocked. Based on the fact that Master Gu Zhao supports us. Your so-called genius son is a cripple, and you have no backing. You have nothing. My father looked up, a cold smile touching his lips. I heard the Peng family lost dozens of elites recently. I heard you couldn't even protect your own son. Is that the strength you're talking about? Peng Wanqing's face turned pale with rage. Father. Peng Ting stepped forward, her eyes sharp and mocking. Don't bother talking to them. Is there anyone in the Yi family's younger generation who can even stand against my sword? She pointed to the 5-leaf blue bamboo on her chest. A 5th-level sword practitioner. Every young member of my family lowered their heads. They couldn't meet her eyes. Peng Wanqing let out a booming laugh. Look at them, Yi Zheng. This is the future of your family? A pack of cowards. I bet they all turned into useless trash the moment Yi Hong lost his soul. The rest of the Peng family joined in the laughter. It was a bitter truth. Without me at my peak, The strongest youth left was Yilin, and he was only an 8th level sword trainee. Peng Ting was 22, much older than us, but her rank gave her the right to look down on everyone. Go on, Yi Zheng, Peng Wanqing taunted. Send one of them up. My daughter is only a few levels higher. Maybe you have a hidden genius who can bridge the gap? I'll do it, a voice shouted. Yilin stepped forward, his sword gripped tight. He had always been jealous of me, but when the family was insulted, he didn't back down. Yilin, stop, someone whispered. An 8th level trainee fighting a 5th level practitioner was suicide. Even if it's suicide, I won't let her insult us, Yilin hissed. He lunged forward. His sword blurred into a dozen shadows, the flying flower technique. It was a solid move, but Peng Ting just laughed. She didn't even draw her weapon. She reached out with 2 fingers and caught the blade midair. The steel snapped. Before Yilin could move, she slammed her palm into his chest. Cloud-pushing sword chi exploded from her hand like a rolling wave. Yilin was sent flying across the hall, smashing through a chair before collapsing into unconsciousness. My father and uncle rushed to his side. My father stood up, his eyes burning with a murderous light. I'll handle you myself, he growled. Energy began to pour out of his body, condensing into the shape of physical blades. He had reached the level of a sword master. He had formed a sword altar. Peng Wanqing's face darkened for a moment. Then he smirked. So you broke through? It doesn't matter. In front of Master Gu Zhao, you are still an ant. Gu Zhao, who hadn't moved an inch, finally took a single step forward. A white shockwave rippled out from his foot. The floor of the hall was made of reinforced stone meant to handle massive pressure, but it didn't matter. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ground, reaching every corner of the room in a single second. The entire building trembled under his weight. Head of the Yi family, Gu Zhao started, his voice heavy and low like the rumble of distant thunder. As a senior, interfering in a fight between the younger generation, that's hardly appropriate, wouldn't you say? The threat was crystal clear. If my father, Yi Zheng, stepped in to help, Gu Zhao would strike. My father looked down at the spiderweb of cracks at his feet, his face pale with despair. I could see the agony in his eyes. He was terrified that the Yi family would meet its end today, right under his watch. Yi Zheng, Peng Wanqing sneered, looking absolutely delighted. Now you know whose fist is harder. Now you know whose sword is sharper. He looked like a man who had finally achieved his life's dream of stepping on our necks. So what if your fist is hard? So what if your sword is sharp? I didn't wait for my father to respond. I stepped into the hall, my pace steady and slow. Well, look who it is, Peng Ting said, her eyes flashing with a mocking light. The legendary genius has finally arrived. She spat the word genius like it was a dirty joke. She could sense my energy. To her, the sword chi in my body was thin and weak, barely at the level of a 3rd level trainee. Back in the day, my reputation had completely overshadowed her. Even as a 5th level practitioner, she was nobody compared to me. Today, she wanted to prove to everyone that the Peng family was the new power in Li City. Stop your damn yapping, I said, my voice cold. If my dragon's soul hadn't been crippled, would you even dare to stand here? Oh, the genius is angry. Peng Ting's lip curled in disgust. You're nothing but a broken dragon now, yet you still talk so big. I'd love to see if your bones are as hard as your mouth. I tightened my fists. Then stop talking. Let's go. I'll show you today that even a broken dragon is still a dragon. We aren't creatures that insects like you can just step on. Peng Ting burst into laughter. Behind her, the rest of the Peng family joined in, their faces full of mockery. It seems you still don't want to accept your fate, she hissed. Fine, I'll make you accept it. Before she even finished speaking, her silhouette blurred. She lunged at me like a bolt of lightning. This was her cloud-pushing sword chi. Her palms moved in a blur, and her fingers aimed straight for my vitals. She was fast. Most people in the room couldn't even track her movement, but they could feel the sheer pressure of her strike. This hit was several times stronger than the one she used to take down Yilin. It felt like a wild beast was hidden within the rolling clouds of her energy. I didn't try to dodge. I didn't need to. The Great Spirit mark on my back flared with light. I threw a punch, the Great Spirit God fist. When our strikes collided, a bolt of actual lightning erupted from my knuckles. It surged directly into the center of her palm. Boom! There was a sickening explosion. Everyone watched in horror as Peng Ting's fair hand literally disintegrated into a red mist. The entire hall went dead silent. She stood there, staring at where her hand used to be. Her wrist was a jagged, bloody mess. Then, the scream started, a high-pitched, agonizing wail that shattered the silence. Nobody expected this. Not even my father. Peng Ting was a 5th-level practitioner, and on paper, I was just a weakling. The shock in the room was thick enough to choke on. They were all asking the same question. Is he really a cripple? The Yi family was ecstatic, but the Peng family was livid. Peng Wanqing's face turned a bruised purple. He had already lost his son, Peng Fei, to my flying daggers. Now, I had just blown his daughter's hand off. You bastard. You actually tried to kill her, he roared. He lunged. A blast of frost erupted from his palm, freezing the very air into jagged ice crystals as it raced toward me. He was a 9th-level practitioner using the profound ice sword chi. The temperature in the hall dropped instantly. But before the ice could touch me, a massive wave of purple sword chi cut through the air. Crash! The two energies collided, sending a shockwave that nearly knocked everyone off their feet. I was forced back 3 steps before I could steady myself. Were you all just lying through your teeth earlier? My father shouted, his voice full of rage. His purple chi completely shattered the frost. My father was a 1st-level sword master, and Peng Wanqing was only a 9th-level practitioner. That one level of difference was an ocean of power. Peng Wanqing's face twitched. He knew he couldn't beat my father, so he turned his desperate, hawk-like gaze toward Gu Zhao. Gu Zhao, who had been watching the whole time, finally let a golden light flicker in his eyes. Head of the Yi family, I didn't want to get involved. But you and your son are too much. This little brat is cruel and vicious. If I don't step in, I'm afraid he'll think he can turn the heavens of the city upside down. Gu Zhao narrowed his eyes. Deep within his pupils, red flames began to swirl. Stay, he whispered. The word hit me like a physical blow. Suddenly, I felt like I had been dropped into a furnace. My entire soul space was set ablaze. This was the soul burning technique, a terrifying mental attack that could turn a man's soul to ash in seconds, leaving him a mindless husk. Hunger, my father cried out. He knew no one could withstand a soul attack from a 9th-level sword master. Ignorant boy, Gu Zhao sneered, a cruel smile playing on his lips. I'll let you taste the agony of a burning soul. But then his smile froze. Cheap tricks, I spat. You think this can hurt me? I activated the formless divine seal. Deep within my soul space, a mysterious golden seal flashed into existence. 2 beams of brilliant white light shot out. The first beam instantly snuffed out his red flames. The second beam transformed into a cold, sharp blade of mental energy. I stared directly into Gu Zhao's eyes. Gu Zhao's face transformed from arrogance to pure terror. To him, it felt like I had become a massive, divine sword aimed straight at his soul. He scrambled to build mental defenses, layer after layer of soul energy. But it didn't matter. My mental blade shattered his defenses like they were made of glass. He let out a muffled groan, his body jerking violently. His face went paper white as he stumbled back. The room gasped. This was impossible. Gu Zhao was a 9th-level sword master with a soul in the late void realm. How could he be wounded by a counterattack from me? I looked around at their shocked faces. Your skin is really thick, isn't it? Who was it that said if someone from my generation beat Peng Ting, this would all be over? Get the Peng family out of here right now. I shouted, my voice cutting through the silence. I looked at their stunned faces and let out a cold laugh. Who was it that said seniors shouldn't interfere in the battles of the younger generation? Was it you, Gu Zhao? Do your words mean nothing? Or do you just like the sound of your own breath? The Peng family members looked like they had swallowed flies. Gu Zhao, still reeling from the backlash of my soul counterattack, was trembling with pure rage. You little bastard, he roared. He didn't wait. He moved like a blur of wind, charging straight at me. My family gasped in terror. They knew that even if I had some strange advantage with soul power, a direct physical strike from a 9th-level sword master was a death sentence. There was a massive chasm between our cultivation levels that no trick could bridge. He was too fast. Even my father, Yi Xiangtian, couldn't react in time to save me. I tried to circulate my energy to dodge, but my body felt like it was moving through lead. The strike was coming, and it was going to crush me. Boom! A massive explosion of energy rocked the hall. I wasn't dead. A figure had appeared in front of me, meeting Gu Zhao's palm with a punch of his own. The shockwave sent dust flying, but the man standing before me didn't budge an inch. "Uncle Li," I whispered, stunned. Everyone in the Yi family froze. Standing there was the man who guarded our library, a hunched, limping old man we all thought was just a harmless servant. Nobody expected Uncle Li to possess the strength of a 9th-level swordmaster. "The Gusha Demon Gong." Gu Zhao hissed, his face pale as he stared at Uncle Li. The room went deathly silent. Those 4 words felt like a curse. 200 years ago, the Gusha demon sect was the most feared evil organization in the Qi Kingdom. Even today, the statue of their leader, Di Chun, stands outside the capital, forced to kneel so every passerby can spit on it. The name Gusha was a forbidden taboo. Uncle Li's sword aura began to swirl with starlight, and within that gray mist, 7 stars flickered. It was the unmistakable mark of the demon sect. "So," Gu Zhao sneered, stepping back, "the Yi family is harboring demon remnants." Uncle Li's body shook slightly. His face was ghostly white, and a thin trail of blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. He was badly injured from that single exchange. "The Yi family knows nothing of my identity," Uncle Li said, his voice raspy and old. "I only acted to repay a meal they gave me years ago." Gu Zhao narrowed his eyes. He could tell Uncle Li was carrying an old, deep-seated injury. Despite his high realm, the old man couldn't exert his full power. If Gu Zhao killed a high-ranking demon remnant here, the rewards from the Southern Prison Academy, or even the Jixia Sword Sect, would be astronomical. Outside the Yi Manor, at a small noodle stall, Wu Qingxue and her disciple Miao Linglong sat quietly. They couldn't see through the walls, but they sensed everything. "Teacher, that man is injured," Miao Linglong whispered, her eyes full of worry. "Can he win?" Wu Qingxue sipped her water and frowned. "No, that exchange just made his old wounds worse. He won't survive the day." She stood up and began walking toward our gates. A white spirit bird flew from the Yi family walls and tucked itself into her sleeve. It had been her eyes and ears the entire time. Inside, my family was backing away from Uncle Li. The fear of being associated with the demon sect was stronger than their gratitude. In the Qi Kingdom, even talking to a demon meant your entire lineage could be executed. But I didn't pull away. I stepped forward and grabbed Uncle Li's trembling arm. "Uncle Li, you're hurt." "Young Master Hong," he interrupted, his voice tired. "I hid my past. This has nothing to do with your family. The government isn't so blind that they'll blame you for my secrets." He was trying to protect us, even now. Gu Zhao didn't care about the truth. He saw an opportunity and lunged again. "Die. Watch out." Uncle Li shoved me aside and raised his palm to meet the attack. Crack. The starlight collided with Gu Zhao's white sword energy. Uncle Li was sent flying, crashing to the floor as he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Uncle Li, my father, Yi Shangtian, leaped forward, standing between the old man and Gu Zhao. "Your opponent is me." Gu Zhao laughed. "A first-level swordmaster? You aren't even worth my time." "Master Gu Zhao," a cold, feminine voice rang through the hall. "You certainly are acting brave today." 2 women walked into the room. Their beauty was breathtaking, but their presence was even more overwhelming. Wu Qingxue, Gu Zhao's face darkened. My father's eyes lit up. He had heard of her, the youngest great sword master at the Southern Prison Academy. The word great changed everything. Most people go their entire lives without seeing a great sword master in the flesh. Wu Qingxue didn't look at my father. She looked at Gu Zhao and the Peng family with eyes like ice. "I am protecting the Yi family," she said calmly. "Leave. Now." Gu Zhao looked like he wanted to vomit. The Peng family members were shaking, their faces turning from red to white. They hated me, but against a great sword master, they were nothing. One great sword master could slaughter 10 9th-level sword masters without breaking a sweat. "Master Wu," Gu Zhao gritted out. "This family harbors a demon. If you protect them, aren't you afraid of the principal's judgment?" "Whether they are demons is for the court to decide," Wu Qingxue replied, her gaze sharpening. It is not for a man like you to determine. Gu Zhao stood frozen, trapped between his greed and his fear. He knew that as long as she was here, he couldn't touch us. I originally thought that aside from Yi Li's teacher, Zhou Tsong, no one would dare to get involved in the Yi family's mess. I never expected Wu Qingxue to show up. Gu Zhao was completely baffled. Before he launched this attack, he had done his homework. He knew that outside of Yi Li, our family had no backing. Since Prince Ning had sent Yi Li to the immortal sacrifice, and Zhou Tsong had already turned his back on us, everyone else was just staying away to save their own skins. So why was Wu Qingxue helping us? Gu Zhao's eyes shifted toward the young woman standing next to her, Miao Linglong. He saw the look in her eyes and realized the truth. His expression darkened as he glanced at Peng Ting, whose hand I had crushed earlier. He looked at her with a flash of genuine pain. For him to rush here from the Southern Prison Academy and discard his status just to stand up for the Peng family proved their relationship was more than just master and apprentice. The way he looked at her wasn't professional, it was personal. "Teacher," Peng Ting whispered, her face pale as she stumbled toward him. Gu Zhao took a deep breath, his eyes cold and sharp. With Wu Qingxue here, getting revenge for Peng Ting today was impossible. "Fine," Gu Zhao spat, looking at Wu Qingxue. "Since Master Wu is so determined to protect the Yi family, I will report everything exactly as it happened. We'll see how you explain yourself to the academy then." He flicked his sleeves in a rage and stormed out. With their protector gone, the Peng family didn't dare stay a second longer. They scrambled to follow him out the door. "Thank you for your help, Master Wu," my father, Yi Zheng, said, bowing slightly. "Otherwise, the Yi family would have been in grave danger today. Do you really think the crisis is over?" Wu Qingxue asked, her cold gaze landing on my father's face. My father froze. He knew exactly what she meant. Because of the connection to the so-called demon sect, the trouble we were about to face would be much larger than just the Peng family. I tightened my fists. All of this started because my ancestral dragon soul was crippled. No matter what, I had to lead my family through this. "Linglong, let's go," Wu Qingxue called out. "Yes, teacher," Miao Linglong replied. She turned back to me and gave me a quick wink before following her master out of the hall. Soon, the room was empty except for me, my father, and Uncle Li. Uncle Li looked even older and more fragile than he had a few minutes ago. "Uncle Li," I asked quietly, "are you really part of the demon sect?" He let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "The demon sect? Does everyone really think the Gauche Immortal Mountain is a den of demons?" My father and I exchanged a look. We had never heard that name before. "Since things have come to this," Uncle Li sighed, "I suppose it's time I told you everything." He walked shakily toward a bookshelf and pressed 7 hidden buttons in a specific sequence. A heavy grinding sound filled the room as the stone floor in the center of the study began to slide away. It revealed a dark, narrow tunnel sloping downward. I was stunned. I had lived here my whole life and never knew this secret passage existed. "Follow me," Uncle Li said, lighting a candle. We followed him down about 30 feet until we reached a small, cramped chamber. My senses are sharper than most, and as the candlelight hit the walls, I saw a mural. My eyes widened. "Is this the Gauche Demon Palace?" I whispered. "Does this look like a palace of demons to you?" Uncle Li asked with a sad smile. I shook my head. The mural didn't feel dark or evil at all. Instead, it radiated a sense of overwhelming righteousness and honor. Uncle Li's deathly pale face finally showed a flicker of relief. "Gauche Mysterious Palace," he corrected me. "That is its true name." He leaned against the wall, his eyes turning misty as if traveling back 200 years. He told us about the struggle for the throne between the 9 princes of the Qi Kingdom. The 4th prince, Yu Tai, had been the underdog, but he had befriended a man named Di Chun. Di Chun was a genius, the second man in history to become a 9-seal sword emperor, reaching that level 23 years younger than his own master. Di Chun was a man of pure heart. He believed Yu Tai's lies and treated him like a brother. To help him win the throne, Di Chun founded the Gauche Immortal Mountain. He had 108 followers, each one as powerful as a dragon. They didn't just win the war for the prince. They suppressed sea monster invasions and stopped massive riots that threatened the kingdom. But on the day of the coronation, Uncle Li's voice trembled. Yu Tai didn't reward them. He poisoned Di Chen's wine and sent an army to wipe out the Gauche Immortal Mountain. They were powerful, but they were outnumbered. 10,000 elite red armor soldiers slaughtered them all. Not a single soul survived. Uncle Li's eyes turned blood red with rage. His fists were clenched so tight his whole body shook. "Then who are you?" I asked. "I wasn't one of the 108, he rasped. "I was Di Chen's sword-bearing page. Right before the massacre, I was bringing Di Chen's newborn child to the capital to surprise him. When I arrived, I heard the news. Yu Tai had branded the Immortal Mountain as a demon sect to justify the slaughter. He rewrote the history books, turning his greatest ally into a bloodthirsty monster. He even built a statue of Di Chun and forced it to kneel forever outside the southern gate so people could spit on it and whip it. And Di Chen's actual bones are buried right under that statue." Uncle Li suddenly coughed up a spray of dark blood. "Uncle Li," my father and I rushed to his side. I felt a cold, sharp fury rising in my chest. Despicable wasn't a strong enough word for what Yu Tai had done. He killed the man who put him on the throne and then spent centuries dragging his name through the mud. It reminded me too much of my own life. How I sacrificed everything for Ning Xian, only for her to discard me and brand me a criminal so she could look like a genius. "Uncle Li, you need to rest," I said, pulling out a blood-replenishing pill. He pushed my hand away. "Don't waste it, young Master Hong. Have you memorized the mural?" I nodded. "Good," he whispered, looking relieved. I expected nothing less from a descendant of the emperor. Neither my father nor I were surprised. We had already guessed it. The Yi family was the bloodline of Di Chun. "Young Master Hong," Uncle Li warned, his face dead serious. "You must not practice the Gauche mysterious technique yet. Not until you are ready. Unless you have the power to challenge the entire state of Qi, stay away from it," Uncle Li warned. I nodded silently. I stepped toward the ancestral tablets, intending to kneel and pay my respects to the fallen emperor. "Wait," Uncle Li barked, stopping me in my tracks. "Young Master Hong, I swore an oath before my master's bloodline. Until Yu Tai is dead, and until the Immortal Mountain regains its former glory, the descendants of the Di clan have no right to offer sacrifices to his spirit." I froze. My body was halfway into a bow, but I straightened up. It was a harsh thing to hear, but I understood his pain. My ancestor had suffered a monumental injustice, and even now, the people of Qi continued to spit on his name. How could I bow in peace while the murderer sat on the throne? "All right," Uncle Li whispered, his voice suddenly calm. "I've said everything I needed to say." Before I could react, Uncle Li reached into his sleeve and pulled out a jagged short sword. The blade flashed in the dim light. With a sickening squelch, he plunged the steel deep into his own stomach. "Uncle Li," my father and I screamed, lunging forward. It happened too fast. We couldn't stop him. Uncle Li's face twisted in agony, but he didn't stop. He gripped the hilt and pulled the blade out, followed by his own hand reaching into the open wound. He fumbled inside his own body and pulled out a blood-stained jade medallion. "This is my master's Gauche command," he gasped, trembling as he held the bloody jade aloft. "Kneel. Accept the command." My father and I dropped to our knees instantly. "He who holds this jade is the master of Gauche," Uncle Li choked out, blood bubbling at his lips. "You shall lead our people. You shall carry our will. Level the world. Cleanse the world." He pressed the warm, wet jade into my hands. I gripped it tight, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Now," he said, his eyes beginning to glaze over. "Get ready to cut off my head." My father and I stared at him, horrified. "What? Uncle Li, why?" "I have old injuries," he wheezed. "I can't use my power anymore. After that fight with Gu Zhao, the wounds reopened. I'm already dying." He took a ragged breath. "Take my head to the capital. Give it to the court. It's the only way to sever the connection between the Yi family and the so-called demon sect." I finally understood his sacrifice. He wanted to use his death to shield us. "Uncle Li, if the court already suspects us, your head won't be enough?" I said, my voice trembling. He nodded weakly. "My head, plus a secret. Then they will believe you." "What secret?" I asked. Uncle Li reached back into his bloodied abdomen. He pulled out a small iron box, barely half a foot wide. It was covered in gore and etched with strange, flickering runes that pulse with a ghostly energy. "These are the soul seals left by Emperor Di-chan," Uncle Lee whispered. "Inside this box is the method of entering the profound." I felt a jolt of shock. In the world of swordsmen, the ranks were clear: sword trainee, sword vision, great sword vision, and then sword earth. To reach the earth realm was a feat reserved for geniuses. In 500 years, the state of Qi had produced fewer than 100. To reach the peak, the nine-seal earth realm, was almost impossible. Only 3 people had ever done it: Long Qiu, Di Chun, and the traitor Yu Tai. Currently, there were only 6 nine-seal earth experts in the country, but not a single one of them had been able to enter the profound. It was the ultimate goal of every master. If our ancestor had this method, why didn't he use it himself? I asked. He was too busy suppressing the riots at Bomb Mountain, Uncle Lee sighed. He didn't know if he would come back alive, so he sealed the secret and gave it to me for safekeeping. He survived the riots, but he didn't survive Yu Tai's betrayal. I took the cold iron box from his hands. After he died, I hid this box and the Jade Command inside my own body, Uncle Lee said, his face turning ghostly white. If the Yi family presents my head and this box to the Emperor, they will leave you alone. But remember, do not open it. The seal is tied to Di Chen's soul. If it's broken, Yu Tai will know it's a fake. You must use it to gain his trust. I nodded, my eyes burning with a cold fury. To save my family, I had to hand over the ultimate secret of power to our greatest enemy. It was the ultimate humiliation. I gripped the box so hard my knuckles turned white. I had to get stronger. I had to. It's time, Uncle Lee said, his eyes suddenly clear and sharp one last time. Do it. The air in the secret room became heavy, suffocating. The candlelight flickered as if the shadows themselves were weeping. My father and I bowed 3 times to the man who had given everything for us. Hurry, Uncle Lee urged. A head taken from a living man looks different than one from a corpse. Don't let my death be for nothing. My father looked at me, his face a mask of grief. Hunger, go outside. I stepped out into the night, the air feeling like lead in my lungs. This was the law of the jungle. This was the world I lived in. Later that night, I slipped out of the Yi Manor like a ghost. I had work to do. Peng Fei had mentioned a secret map, the map to the hidden realm of the god of war, Han Xian. The Peng family was broken, their experts dead or injured. They were desperate. If they wanted to survive, they would try to use that map to find a new benefactor. I moved across the rooftops, a black blur against the moon. The Peng family estate was quiet. They had lost so many men that their patrols were thin. I spread my soul power out like a net, sensing every guard, every movement behind the high walls. I found a gap and vaulted over the wall, landing silently. I crept through the shadows, moving like a hunting cat, until I reached the only room with a light still burning. I pressed myself against the wall beneath the window. Inside, I heard voices. Peng Wanqing and his daughter, Peng Ting. Father, my teacher has already returned to the Southern Academy, Peng Ting said. Her voice was thin, and I knew her right wrist was still a bandaged stump where I had cut off her hand. She told us not to move. The Yi family is linked to the demon sect now. Their end is coming. Tinger, Peng Wanqing's voice was heavy with exhaustion. We've lost too much. We can't recover on our own. Your teacher is a small fish compared to the real players. I heard a drawer slide open. Look at this, Wanqing whispered. I heard the rustle of cloth and then the sound of old parchment being unrolled. This is the map left by the god of war, Han Xian. This is our only way back to the top. With our own strength, we can't get anything from this, Peng Wanqing said, his voice dropping to a low hiss. You will take this map to Prince Ning's mansion. Offer it to him. Then, tell them that even though Yi Hong's sword soul is crippled, his power has actually grown. Prince Ning won't be able to sit still after hearing that. He'll step in to crush the Yi family for us. Once they fall, everything they own becomes ours again. Our losses will be recovered, and the Peng family will rule the city alone. Inside the room, Peng Ting nodded solemnly. She took the yellowed parchment from her father's hand. Her eyes burned with a cold, sharp hatred. Don't worry, father, she whispered. Yi Hong took my hand. I will make sure he begs for death. Peng Wanqing's face was like stone. Go now. Don't delay. And be careful. Outside, I crouched on a roof beam, my breath steady. I didn't make a sound. A moment later, Peng Ting stepped out of the room. She scanned the courtyard cautiously, then mounted a one-horned beast, a creature capable of covering 1,000 miles in a day. She didn't waste time. She galloped out of the estate and into the night. I dropped from the beam and took off. I moved like a leopard through the dark, tracking her from the shadows. A low rumble of thunder rolled across the sky. A flash of lightning tore through the clouds, illuminating the city for a brief, silver second. Peng Ting was heading toward the South City Gate. I followed at a distance, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. About 15 minutes later, she reached an old, paved road in the slums. It was a desolate area. No cultivators lived here, and the rain had started to fall in a steady, rhythmic drizzle. Thunder crashed again. Arcs of silver electricity danced in the sky. I moved. A flash of cold steel sliced through the rain, aiming straight for Peng Ting's throat. "Who's there?" she screamed. She was a level 5 swordsman. Her senses were sharp. Despite the thunder, she felt the killing intent. But the blade was too fast. She didn't have time to dodge. She pulled her sword in a desperate block. The impact was massive. The force of the throw sent her flying off the back of her beast. She hit the ground hard, her arm numb from the vibration. "Who are you?" she hissed, staring at the figure in the black cloak. Then her eyes shifted to the throwing knife embedded in a nearby rock. Her face went pale. "Yihong." Everyone in Li City knew about my knives. Fast, accurate, and lethal. Before my sword's soul was crippled, no one could catch them. But she looked terrified because the force behind this throw was 10 times stronger than anything I'd shown before. "What do you want?" she asked, her sword trembling as she stood up. Rain dripped off the blade. "That's a stupid question," I said. I didn't wait. I flicked my wrist, and 3 more blades blurred through the air. They were faster than the lightning above us. Peng Ting was fast, too. She spun her sword, creating a shield of steel that blocked the rain itself. "You think knives can kill me in a fair fight?" she mocked. 2 of the blades clanged against her steel and fell into the mud. She thought she had me. She thought throwing knives were only good for sneak attacks. She was wrong. As the 3rd knife approached, it didn't fly straight. It suddenly curved in midair. It looped around her sword guard and lunged at her left side with impossible speed. "What?" she gasped. She pushed her speed to the limit. Her sword was engraved with a Gale inscription, a high-grade mark that tripled her movement speed. At the very last microsecond, she managed to knock the 3rd knife away. But the force of the block sent her staggering back. Her eyes were wide with realization. "Soul-guided blades," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Only a great sword master has enough soul power to do that. Your soul, it's already at that level." I didn't answer. I was looking at her sword. I could feel the energy of the Gale inscription. It was a valuable piece of gear. "Yihong," she said suddenly, her voice turning soft. "I admit it. I underestimated you. I'm no match for you now. What will it take for you to let me go?" I tilted my head. I didn't expect her to fold so quickly. My eyes drifted down. Her clothes were soaked through by the rain, clinging to her body. She noticed my gaze and a small, cruel smirk touched her mind, though she kept her face looking pathetic. She probably thought I was just another man she could manipulate with her body, just like she had with others. "Yihong, I had no choice," she sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "My father forced me. I never wanted to hurt you." She was good. Her eyes filled with fox tears. "If you let me go," she whispered, stepping closer, "I'll give you anything you want." She reached up to her neck with a slow, practiced motion. She unbuttoned the top of her dress, letting the rain trail down her skin. She was moving in for the kill, using her body as a distraction. I felt a wave of pure disgust. But I didn't pull away. I reached my hand out toward her, playing along. She saw my hand coming and felt a surge of triumph. She thought I was an idiot. The moment her chest touched my fingers, her expression froze. The triumph turned to cold, agonizing shock. A hidden blade was already in my hand. I drove it straight through her heart. Bright red blood bloomed across the white skin of her chest. Her eyes bulged with fear, resentment, and then, nothing. The light went out. She slumped to the ground, dead before she hit the mud. I didn't feel anything. I picked up her high-grade sword and my throwing knives. I reached into her robes and pulled out the yellowed map, the god of war's secret. I hoisted her body onto the back of the one-horned beast and gave the creature a sharp jab with my knife. The beast shrieked and bolted into the darkness. It would run for hundreds of miles before stopping. By the time anyone found her, I'd be long gone. "Goodbye, Peng Ting," I muttered. I watched the beast disappear into the rain. The sun was starting to rise over Li City. My father was already on his way to the capital with the enemy's head, and the Yi family was finally under our control. But with this map in my hand, the real game was just beginning. We buried Uncle Li in secret. I didn't sleep or rest for 3 days and 3 nights, keeping a silent vigil over his spirit. It took that long for the Peng family to realize Peng Ting was dead. They had no idea who killed her. When the news finally broke, Peng Wanqing looked like a man who had lost his soul. He had lost his son, his daughter, and dozens of his family's elite fighters. Decades of foundation had crumbled into dust in a matter of days. I knew he wanted us dead. I could almost hear his teeth grinding and his knuckles cracking from across the city. But the final blow came shortly after. A shipment of medicinal herbs traveling from Yu City to Li City was hijacked. When Peng Wanqing heard that, he sprayed a mouthful of blood across the floor and collapsed. The last lifeline of his family was gone. He was left paralyzed by his own rage, and the Peng family became nothing more than a hollow name. But the Pengs were never the real threat. My true enemies were Prince Ning's mansion and the Qi royal family. They had betrayed the Yi family's ancestors, leaving the statue of our forefather, Di Chun, kneeling in shame outside the capital to be spat upon by the world. My father, Yi Zheng, had taken Uncle Li's head to the capital to prove his loyalty to the king. I was sick with worry. If he couldn't convince the king of his devotion, he wouldn't be coming back, and the Yi family would be wiped off the map. After the funeral, I threw myself into my cultivation. I practiced the wisdom, ape, fox, and giant spirit inscriptions relentlessly. These marks weren't just tattoos, they were living power. The more I practiced, the stronger they became. The giant spirit inscription was especially potent. If I mastered its peak power, I could challenge a 3rd or 4th level swordsman. It even allowed me to absorb the essence of heaven and earth to harden my physical body. My only regret was that I couldn't yet extract the Gale inscription from my sword to mark it onto my own skin. If I could do that, my combat speed would double instantly. As for the secret map I took from Peng Ting, I tucked it away. I wasn't strong enough for that mystery yet. "Young master, the patriarch is back," a servant shouted one morning. I stopped my training and rushed to the main hall. My father and 3rd uncle, Yi Xiangtian, were there, but they weren't alone. A middle-aged man with a sour expression sat with them. "Hong my father said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This is Master Zhang Kuan. Come, show your respects." I looked at Zhang Kuan. He was arrogant, his eyes filled with a cold, condescending light. His aura was heavy, clearly stronger than my father's. I gave a polite bow, but he didn't even look at me. He kept his nose pointed toward the ceiling. "Because we took down the rebels and offered the secret cultivation methods, the king is pleased," my father explained, though his voice was bitter. "At the suggestion of Prince Yu Yang, Master Zhang Kuan has been sent to assist our family." I understood immediately. This wasn't assistance. It was surveillance. Zhang Kuan was a blade hanging over our heads, ready to report our every move to the prince. My killing intent flared like thunder in my chest, but I kept my face as still as a frozen lake. "Then the Yi family's future depends on Master Zhang," I said, bowing again. Zhang Kuan waved his hand dismissively. "If I can't break the Yi family within a year, I'm useless," he muttered, barely hiding the orders Prince Yu Yang had given him. I turned to my father. "The Southern Prison Academy is opening its doors. I'm leaving tomorrow." Whether it was sword cultivation, body tempering, or inscription arts, I needed resources and systematic training. I knew the academy might be a giant web designed to trap me, but I had no choice. Without strength, the Yi family would never rise. I had to walk into the dragon's den. The next morning, I mounted a plum blossom deer and rode toward the southeast. The academy was 500 miles away. By dusk, I arrived at the foot of Nansong Mountain. The plaza was a sea of people, at least 30,000. Soldiers in heavy armor patrolled the perimeter to keep order. In the center, a massive white stone platform rose 30 feet into the air. A group of academy instructors stood there, the bamboo insignias on their robes marking them all as great sword masters. Behind them stood a giant stone tablet engraved with 4 words, Southern Prison Academy. The calligraphy was so sharp it felt like a sword cutting through the sky. Most of the teenagers there were surrounded by family and servants. Only a few, like me, were alone. Out of the thousands of applicants, only a fraction would be accepted. The entry requirements were brutal. For the sword hall, you had to be a high-level practitioner before 18. For the body hall, you needed the strength of a tiger. For the inscription hall, your soul power had to be extraordinary. As I pushed through the crowd, I spotted a group of students in academy uniforms. They weren't here to apply. They were watching us like predators watching prey. The academy students scanned the crowd like predators. Their eyes moved with a cold, calculated hunger. Leading them was a man in black robes, his gaze as sharp as a hawk's. If I had seen his face, I would have recognized him instantly. It was Ning Feng, the brother of Ning Xin. He had received word that even though my ancestral dragon soul was crippled, I had turned to body cultivation. He guessed I would show up to join the body hall. He turned to his followers, a cruel smile playing on his lips. He told them to find me and break my arms and legs before I could even take the test. He wanted to make sure I never had a chance. His lackeys nodded eagerly, promising to turn me into a cripple the moment they laid eyes on me. While Ning Feng hunted for me, another figure stood in the crowd. Miao Linglong's beautiful face was tight with anxiety. Her eyes darted through the sea of 30,000 people, searching for a single face. She wondered if I was too afraid of Gu Zhao's revenge to show up. For half an hour, she searched, but finding one person in this chaos was nearly impossible. I was moving through the crowd when a heavy hand suddenly slapped my shoulder. I turned around. Standing there was a burly, dark-faced young man. I didn't say a word, but my eyes caught the insignia on his chest. A 7-leaf blue bamboo. He was a level 7 swordsman. To put that in perspective, Peng Ting, who Gu Zhao valued so much, was only a level 5. This guy was dangerous. He looked at me with a mysterious grin and asked if I was here for the body hall. I nodded slowly. He claimed to have a secret guide that guaranteed a passing grade for the entrance exams. I wasn't interested in a guide, but I was very interested in what he was really up to. I played along. I told him that if he could help, I'd be grateful. He laughed and told me to follow him. He led me away from the busy plaza and down a secluded, tree-lined path. After a while, I acted worried. I asked how much further it was, pretending to be afraid of missing the registration. He smiled, telling me not to worry. Today was just for signing up. The real tests were tomorrow. He said it was safer to talk, where fewer people could overhear the secrets. I kept following him deeper into the woods. Behind me, I could almost feel his silent sneer. He probably thought I was an idiot. He probably thought a guy who couldn't even protect his own dragon soul deserved to be ruined. I wasn't a fool. I knew this was a trap. He was either looking to rob me or something much worse. He kept talking to keep me distracted, and I gave him short, bored answers. Finally, after we were about 3 miles away from the crowd, I stopped. I told him we were far enough. My voice had gone cold, and I saw him shiver. He realized the atmosphere had changed. But then he shook it off. In his mind, I was just a cripple. He thought my physical strength was nothing compared to his. He turned around, a mocking smirk on his face. He told me we had arrived. Before he could finish his sentence, 3 figures blurred out from the trees behind me. They were all Southern Prison Academy disciples. All level 7 swordsmen. They thought they had me cornered. They didn't realize that my soul power had detected them long ago. I knew exactly where they were hiding before they even moved. The dark-faced man showed his true colors. He looked at me with pure malice. The others laughed, calling me a famous waste and a stupid cripple. They didn't think I was a threat. To them, a body cultivator at my level was barely equal to a level 1 swordsman. For level 7 practitioners against 1 level 1, the math was on their side. The leader told them not to kill me. Ning Feng wanted my limbs broken, not my life. They all lunged at once. The dark-faced man came at me from the front, while the other 3 closed in from behind. They were fast. Their footsteps left deep imprints in the dirt, and the wind from their movements shredded the falling leaves around us. But I was faster. Because my soul power was superior, I saw their moves before they made them. I didn't wait for them to hit me. I struck first. I whipped a flying dagger toward the man in the center of the group behind me. He laughed, thinking a small blade couldn't touch him. He stepped to the side to dodge. But his eyes widened in horror when he realized the dagger was already flying toward the exact spot he moved to. I had predicted his dodge perfectly. The blade sank into the left side of his neck and tore out the right. Blood sprayed. He hit the ground, dead before he could scream. The dark-faced leader gasped. He yelled for the others to be careful, realizing my soul power was the real deal. But he told them that as long as they didn't get tricked, my actual combat strength was trash. They were inches away now. Their fist winds were already tearing at my clothes, cutting tiny red lines into my skin. Then, I felt the surge. The Yuan flying rune and the giant spirit rune ignited inside me. My fist met the leader's. A crackle of lightning exploded from my knuckles as the giant spirit's power combined with my lightning-tempered body. The collision sounded like a thunderclap. The dark-faced man was blasted backward 10 feet, his entire arm shattered by the force of my strike. The two men attacking from behind didn't give me a second to breathe. I used the agility from my Yuan flying rune to twist away from the first punch, but the second one caught me off guard. A heavy blow slammed into my back. It felt like being hit by a giant iron sword. My body lurched forward, and a searing heat radiated from my left shoulder. Fire attribute power. This guy had the strength of a level 7 swordsman. I couldn't afford to be careless anymore. I sharpened my focus, my senses heightening. Across from me, the dark-faced leader and his two remaining friends looked horrified. The leader's arm hung limp at his side. After that collision with my fist, he wouldn't be lifting it for days. I didn't give them time to process the shock. I exploded forward like a pouncing tiger. My movements were a blur, fierce as a beast, agile as a monkey, and backed by the strength of a god. Silver arcs of lightning crackled across my skin. My speed and power surged to a terrifying peak in a single heartbeat. The dark-faced leader couldn't even react. I brought my fist down hard on his skull. There was a sickening crack as his forehead split open. Blood and brain matter sprayed the dirt. He hit the ground dead. The other two stood frozen. Their strongest fighter had just been taken out with one punch. They realized they were no match for me. Run, one of them choked out. They bolted. They didn't get 30 feet. I flicked 2 flying daggers in one smooth motion. The first blade buried itself in the back of one man's head, killing him instantly. The second sliced deep into the other man's calf. He let out a pathetic wail and tumbled into the grass. He tried to crawl away, his eyes wide with pure terror. I walked toward him slowly. I didn't rush. I let a cold, dark smile spread across my face. What do you want?" he stammered. "I'm an official student of the Southern Prison Academy's Sword Hall. If you kill me and they find out, you're a dead man." "I've already killed 3, I said, stopping in front of him. "Killing 4 doesn't change much. Do you really think I'm afraid?" I planted my foot firmly on his neck, pinning him to the earth. "Tell me, who is this senior brother Ning you mentioned? Tell me the truth, and maybe I'll let you live." It's Ning Feng," he gasped, desperate for air. "The 7th prince of the Ning mansion. Ning Feng." I committed the name to memory. Then, with a quick application of pressure, I heard a sharp snap. His neck broke instantly. In just a few minutes, I had taken 4 lives. I went through their pockets and found a decent haul. They were carrying a lot of silver coins, about 600 or 700 in total. But the real prize was the pills. I found 13 chi gathering pills. These were mid-grade spiritual medicines, far better than the basic chi blood pills I'd been using. A single one was worth 100 silver coins. For a normal family, 100 coins could last a whole year. This was a small fortune. I wondered what Ning Feng's face would look like when he realized he'd just sent me a gift of 4 level 7 heads and a pile of resources. I knew him from my time hanging around the Ning mansion, but I hadn't expected him to mark me for death so quickly. I wasn't scared, though. If he wanted to play, I'd play. I cleaned myself up and headed back to the Academy Square. It was still packed with people. As I stepped into the crowd, I caught sight of Ning Feng in a far corner. His eyes narrowed until they were just slits. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He clearly hadn't expected me to walk back in one piece. I saw the gears turning in his head. He probably thought someone had helped me, because there was no way a cripple could take down 4 swordsmen. He vanished into the crowd shortly after, looking like a venomous snake retreating to its hole. Hey! A familiar voice broke my thoughts. I looked up to see Miao Linglong weaving through the crowd toward me. She looked like she'd been searching for hours. I thought you weren't coming, she said, catching her breath. Thanks for what happened last time. I rubbed my nose. You actually know how to say thank you? She laughed softly. So, which hall are you joining? Sword Hall, Body Hall, or the Inscription Hall? Wait, that's a stupid question, isn't it? I gave her a look. With my talent, can I even afford the Sword Hall? That place eats money for breakfast. I made it clear I was heading for the Body Hall, the place for those with no other options. If you want to keep being a swordsman, I can help, she offered, leaning in. I can talk to my teacher. He could make an exception and get you into the Sword Hall. The resources there are way better than the Body Hall. I raised an eyebrow. You can just do that? People do it all the time, she whispered. A lot of kids from big families have zero talent, but their parents pull strings with the teachers. Even the Ning Mansion has over a dozen kids here. One of them even made it into the Limit Hall, the hardest one to get into. She was trying to warn me. She wanted me to know how deep the Ning family's roots grew in this academy. I'll pass, I said. My sword soul is gone. Even if I get in, it won't do much. I'll stick to the Body Hall. Maybe I'll actually make a name for myself there. Fair enough, she said, not pushing it. The registration for the Body Hall is over there. She pointed toward the edge of the square. There were dozens of booths. Nearly all of them were for the Sword Hall, and they were swamped with people. The Body Hall and Inscription Hall booths were tucked away, almost deserted. The Inscription Hall guys looked arrogant, knowing their path led to wealth and status. But the Body Hall? It was the bottom of the barrel. There were 2 guys sitting behind the Body Hall desk. Both of them were fast asleep, snoring loudly with drool dripping onto the paperwork. Senior brothers, I'm here to register, I said, rapping my knuckles on the wooden table. They didn't budge. The snoring just got louder. Miao Linglong winced beside me. Senior brothers, I shouted, my voice booming. The 2 of them nearly fell off their chairs. One was a chubby guy with a pale face, and the other had eyes so small they looked like closed slits even when he was awake. The squinty-eyed one stretched and yawned. Fine, fine, he muttered. Register yourself. I grabbed the brush and wrote my details. Yi Hong, 16 years old. The chubby guy's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw me finishing. He started tapping on an abacus like he was possessed. All right, let's see. Registration fee is 10 silver. Testing fee is 100. Tuition is 6,000. That'll be 6,110 silver coins total. He looked at me like I was a walking sack of gold. Thank you, boss. The chubby guy didn't even wait for a response. He just reached out his hand, palm up, demanding the cash. Hey, you two. Miao Linglong shouted before I could even open my mouth. He hasn't even passed the test yet. Why are you collecting tuition already? She looked indignant. Besides, the Sword Hall only charges 4,000 silver. Why is the Body Hall asking for 6,000? The chubby guy and the squinty-eyed one finally really looked at her. Their jaws practically hit the desk. Wait, isn't this Miao Linglong? One of the 4 great beauties of Southern Prison Academy. The squinty-eyed guy's eyes actually popped open for once. He transformed instantly, shaking off his laziness and sitting up straight. One was a greedy pig, the other was a lecher. They were a perfect match. Hee, junior sister Linglong. The squinty-eyed one said with a greasy smile. If it's you, the Body Hall won't charge a single cent. In fact, we'll give you the best courtyard in the entire place. I'm not joining your Body Hall, she snapped. The guy just shrugged. Well, normal people don't come here anyway. We haven't had a new disciple in ages. Now that one finally showed up, we aren't letting him go. Test. Forget the test. As long as he can pay the fee, he's in. I felt a headache coming on. Miao Linglong looked even more disgusted. She couldn't believe how far the Body Hall had fallen. Then why is your tuition higher than the Sword Hall? She demanded. The squinty-eyed guy put on a pathetic face. Junior sister, you have to understand. The Sword Hall, Body Hall, and Inscription Hall all have to manage their own finances. We haven't seen a scrap of meat in months. We have to charge more just to keep the lights on. Miao Linglong turned to me, speechless. You see? This is the body hall. Do you still want to join? I gave her a bitter smile. If my sword's soul wasn't crippled, I'd never choose this place. But right now, I had no choice. My sword's soul was broken, and I didn't know when it would heal. Even if I joined the sword hall and studied under a master like Wu Qingxue, it wouldn't help me much. In the body hall, I could at least master some physical techniques. The sword would have to wait. I'll join, I said. I pulled out a silver card. There's 4,500 silver in here. It can be withdrawn from any bank. Then, I unclipped 4 pouches from my waist and dropped them on the table with a heavy thud. There's about 700 more here. That's 5,200 total. I paused. I'm short by 800. Give me 10 days, and I'll bring the rest. The chubby guy grabbed the card and the pouches instantly, clutching them to his chest like they might grow wings and fly away. No need to owe them, Miao Linglong said, tossing another card onto the table. There's 3,000 in here. Keep the change. But once he's in the body hall, you can't bully him. Any chores he's supposed to do, you two do them instead. 3,000. The chubby guy snatched that card too. Deal. For this much money, I'll do every dirty job he's assigned. I'll be his personal servant. I started to object, but Miao Linglong didn't give me the chance. Fine, it's settled. I'm leaving. She turned and walked away without looking back. The squinty-eyed guy watched her go with a look of pure envy. Brother, you've just offended more than half the men at this academy. Miao Linglong is the goddess of every male disciple's heart. I looked around and realized he was right. Dozens of eyes were burning holes into my back. The hostility was thick enough to choke on. And those are just the new recruits, he whispered. Wait until the senior disciples find out you're this close to her. You're in for a rough time. Beauty isn't a blessing, kid. It's a curse. Money is better, the chubby guy muttered, still stroking the silver cards. As evening fell, I followed the two of them up the mountain. The chubby guy, Wang Mingming, treated me like a living god of wealth. The squinty-eyed one, Xiao Peng, also became strangely friendly. Junior brother Yi, Xian Peak is our territory, Xiao Peng said, throwing an arm around my shoulder like we were old friends. When we reached the summit, my heart sank. There were a few scattered buildings, if you could even call them that. They looked like dilapidated shacks. I honestly wondered if a strong breeze would knock them over. This is the Southern Prison Academy? I asked, wondering if I'd made a massive mistake. Ha! Wang Mingming laughed. I had the same look on my face when I first got here. You'll get used to it. Just look at the senior brothers. I looked around. The peak was lush with trees, and there were about 20 of these shack-like houses. But there were only 6 people in total, 7 including me. Besides Xiao Peng and Wang Mingming, I saw 4 others. An old man with messy hair was lying in a lounge chair, half asleep, lazily waving a straw fan. A white-haired youth sat by a pond, fishing. 2 others, one bald and one with a thick beard, were whispering to each other. I leaned in and realized they were debating which of the new female disciples had the best legs. I almost collapsed. This was my new life. Hey, junior brother, Xiao Peng said, pointing to the old man in the chair. That's our teacher, Gu Feng. Teacher, I said, bowing politely. Gu Feng grunted. He opened one eye, glanced at me, and tossed a book my way. Go practice on your own. He went back to fanning himself. Fatty, I don't care if you handle the money, but since you took 6,000 silver in tuition, you better buy me a jar of good wine. I haven't smelled alcohol in 3 months. I stood there, speechless. Was this really a teacher at a prestigious academy? I started to regret not listening to Miao Linglong. Who could have guessed the body hall was this pathetic? Regardless, I was now a member. The entire hall consisted of 1 teacher and 6 disciples. Compared to the sword hall with its tens of thousands of students, we were nothing. Xian Peak was the shortest mountain in the range. Wang Mingming told me the only reason the hall still existed was because of an ancient rule from the founder that couldn't be overturned. I took a deep breath. A master brings you through the door, but the cultivation is up to you. If they wanted to be lazy, that was their business. I would get stronger on my own. That night, before sleeping, I took out my 13 chi-gathering pills and fed them to my ancestral dragon soul. When it swallowed the 9th pill, I felt a jolt. A new meridian began to glow inside my body. The 4th meridian. Since my soul had been crippled, I only had 3 left. Now, finally, the 4th was awakening. Feeding the dragon worked. Between the inscription power, the beast core, and the pills, I was finally starting to claw my way back. The chi-gathering pills were meant for swordsmen, not body cultivators, but I didn't care. It took 9 of them just to make my 4th meridian appear. It wasn't fully open yet, and I had no idea how many more pills I would need to finish the job. Still, it gave me a massive boost of confidence. I finally saw a flicker of hope. I spent the rest of the night feeding every last pill to the ancestral dragon. As the dragon's power grew, the 4th meridian became clearer, like a glowing vein under my skin. I could see exactly where the blockages were. Until I broke through those clogs, the meridian remained useless. The next morning, the academy was buzzing. Down the mountain, the sword hall and the inscription hall were holding their entrance tests. The sword hall tested cultivation levels and sword comprehension. The inscription hall focused on soul power and ancient symbols. According to Wang Mingming, the body hall used to have its own tests, strength and willpower. In our world, body strength is measured in 5 stages: bull strength, tiger leopard strength, python strength, dragon elephant strength, and divine strength. Each stage has 9 ranks. Usually, you need rank 1 tiger leopard strength just to get in. That's equivalent to being a level 1 swordsman. It's actually harder to get into the body hall because our path is so brutal. Without insane talent and grit, most people give up at bull strength. But at the body hall, it didn't feel like a new day of training. My teacher, Gu Feng, didn't bother giving instructions. My fellow disciples were either gossiping, sleeping, or fishing. Only the fat guy, Wang Mingming, left to run errands at the other peaks. I found a quiet valley and pulled out the book Gu Feng had tossed me. It was titled Only Thunder. It was a mid-grade 0-rank technique, decent for a body cultivator. But as I read, my heart skipped a beat. The techniques in this book perfectly matched my lightning body tempering. It was designed to maximize explosive lightning power within the body. Maybe the body hall wasn't a total joke after all. I looked toward the horizon, deep in thought. Why did Gu Feng give me this specific book? Was it a coincidence, or did he do it on purpose? If it was a fluke, he was a lazy drunk. But if he did it on purpose, it meant he had seen through my hidden power with a single glance. If a body cultivator had that kind of insight, his true strength was unfathomable. Only Thunder was all about force. It taught you how to move so that your strikes were as fast and deadly as a lightning bolt. It was even more terrifying than my giant spirit punch. It had 3 forms. The first was the bolt-pulling style, which used massive vibrations to knock an opponent back. The second was the rapid bolt style, focusing on speed, 36 strikes in a single breath. The third was the thunder strike, a burst of pure explosive power meant to kill instantly. Boom, boom, boom. I started practicing. The valley echoed with sounds like muffled thunder. I stayed there all day, pushing my body until the sun dipped below the trees. When I got back for dinner, Gu Feng threw a letter onto the table. The main office got a report, he said flatly. They say number 6 used illegal means to join the body hall. Tomorrow, number 6 goes to Tianju Peak for a retest. Who's going with him? The table went silent. Old Gu, you can't be serious. Wang Mingming shouted. The sword hall has dozens of people pulling favors to get in every year. I've never heard of a retest. They're clearly targeting us. Third brother, if people want to mess with you, what can you do? The speaker was Huang Qiao, a bearded man who was the 4th disciple. He shrugged. Just give up. Any random student from the inner courts could take down our entire hall by themselves. Wang Mingming rolled his eyes. He wasn't just worried about the hall, he was worried about the silver. If I failed the retest, he'd have to return my tuition and pay a fine on top of it. Number 6, Xiao Peng sighed. Miao Linglong's teacher is very powerful here. If you ask her to speak up for you. Wang Mingming's eyes lit up. Exactly. If Master Wu Qingxue says a word, this all goes away. I just smiled. Is the retest that hard? Not really, Huang Qiao said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. It's only twice as hard as the normal entrance exam. Twice as hard. My face darkened. Huang Qiao wasn't joking. He was being cynical. But the difficulty didn't bother me as much as the people behind it. If I had a guess, Prince Ning's mansion was pulling the strings again. I'd only been at the academy for 2 days. First, they sent thugs to break my limbs. Now, they were trying to disqualify me. They were squeezing me tight. They wouldn't kill me openly. That would look bad. So they tried to ruin me in the shadows. They wanted to make sure I never had a chance to rise again. Prince Ning, I thought, I'm going to become your worst nightmare. I'll go with him tomorrow. The voice was raspy. It was Lin Heng, the eldest disciple. He was the white-haired youth who spent all day fishing. In my memory, this was the first time he had ever spoken. Even Gu Feng looked surprised. Lin Heng was a loner. Why did he care about me? The next morning, Lin Heng and I left Ziyun Peak for Tianzhu Peak. The others stayed behind, acting like they didn't care, except for Wang Mingming, who was clutching his coin purse in a panic. There are a lot of people who want to see you fail, Lin Heng muttered as we reached the testing grounds. I looked around. He wasn't kidding. Nearly 1,000 people had gathered to watch a simple body cultivator's retest. I spotted Lin Feng in the crowd, a smug grin on his face. He was the one who had spread the word. He wanted to watch the former genius be humiliated in front of everyone. According to Academy rules, if I failed a retest, I wouldn't just be expelled. I'd be blacklisted from every cultivation sect in the region. My path would be over. Lin Feng wasn't the only one there. I saw Gu Zhao, another rival who hated my guts. They were all waiting for the kill. I took a breath and stepped forward. I wasn't going anywhere. Gu Zhao's eyes were cold and venomous. After the humiliation he suffered at the hands of the Yi family, he was clearly here for blood. He stepped forward, his voice booming with fake authority. Yi Hong, the Academy received a report that you bribed your way into the body cultivation hall. We are conducting a retest immediately. Do you have any objections? I didn't want to waste words on him. I wanted to see exactly what kind of dirty tricks these people had planned. Let's just start, I said. My calm attitude clearly rubbed Gu Zhao the wrong way. He sneered, his expression darkening. We'll see how relaxed you are in a minute. The test is simple, the weight of 10,000 mountains. Beside me, Lin Heng's eyes went cold. The crowd gasped. I could tell something was wrong. Senior brother, what's the catch? I whispered. Lin Heng nodded slightly. For a body cultivator, this is the hardest possible test. It's almost never used for a simple reevaluation. At first, I thought they were targeting our whole department. Now I see they're just trying to kill you. I felt a chill run down my spine. If you aren't strong enough in this world, people will treat you like meat on a chopping block. In the crowd, I spotted Miao Linglong and Wu Qingxue. Linglong looked panicked, whispering to her teacher to help me. But Wu Qingxue just shook her head. She knew Gu Zhao wouldn't dare use such a lethal test unless he had the Academy's top brass, and Prince Ning backing him. Examiner, Lin Heng called out, his voice raspy. The 10,000 mountains test has 10,000 levels. Surely you don't expect my junior brother to shoulder them all to pass. Gu Zhao burst out laughing. Shoulder them all? Who do you think he is? The Academy orders are simple. If he can withstand 10 levels, he passes. The crowd went silent. 10 levels meant 10,000 pounds of force. A top-tier bull-strength cultivator can only handle about 3,000. To survive 10 levels, I would need the strength of a peak-ranked tiger leopard. Normally, a student only needs level 1 strength to pass. Fair indeed. Lin Heng spat, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Everyone else settled in to watch the show. They looked at me like I was already dead. To them, I was just a toad who tried to swallow a swan by chasing Princess Ningxin, and now I was about to be crushed into a meat paste. Silence, Gu Zhao barked. He pointed to a massive slab of black basalt standing over 10 feet tall. Begin. The rock itself weighed about 1,000 pounds. But the weight of the stone wasn't the real test. I walked up to it, took a deep breath, and heaved it onto my shoulders. 1,000 pounds was nothing to me. But the moment the stone settled on my back, Gu Zhao flicked his wrist. A streak of white gold light shot into the basalt. Level 1. The stone hummed, and the weight instantly doubled. Gu Zhao didn't stop. He blurred his hands, firing one streak of light after another into the rock. Level 2. Level 3. Level 4. Level 5. Level 6. Including the weight of the stone, 7,000 pounds crashed down on me. My spine buckled. My legs began to shake violently. Each rune adds 1,000 pounds. Lin Feng shouted from the crowd, his face twisted with joy. You're already folding at level 6. For more to go, you trash. The wait was agonizing. But as they laughed, I gritted my teeth. Slowly, inch by inch, I forced my spine straight again. Gu Zhao narrowed his eyes. Level 7. Another flash. 8,000 pounds. My bones started to creak and pop. The veins on my forehead bulged like snakes, and the giant spirit rune on my back began to glow faintly through my clothes. Level 8. Gu Zhao shouted, refusing to give me a second to breathe. I bent low, sweat pouring off me like rain. My legs were trembling so hard I thought they would snap. Before I could even steady myself, he sent the 9th streak of light. Level 9. The impact nearly drove me to my knees. My kneecap hovered an inch from the dirt. I snarled, biting my lip until it bled, and forced myself back up. Over 10,000 pounds were now crushing me. That was the strength of a level 9 swordmaster. The crowd's mockery died down, replaced by shock. Lin Feng's face turned pale. He knew me. He knew I shouldn't have this kind of physical power. He thought I had been hiding my true strength all along. Level 10. Gu Zhao screamed, throwing the final jade slip. The weight jumped to 11,000 pounds. I felt my lungs compress. Blood sprayed from my mouth, staining the dirt. Not yet, I thought. You won't break me. The giant spirit rune exploded with power. My muscles rippled, and silver arcs of lightning flickered across my skin. With a guttural roar, I stood tall, the massive basalt slab balanced firmly on my shoulders. The ground beneath my feet shattered into a spiderweb of cracks. The silence was absolute. I had reached the peak of tiger leopard strength. I had done the impossible. He passed, Miao Linglong whispered, her eyes shining. Even Wu Qingxue looked at me with a new, strange intensity. Lin Feng looked like he had swallowed a fly. His face turned a sickly shade of purple. He couldn't believe it. Even with my soul intact, I shouldn't have been able to survive this. I stared at Gu Zhao through the sweat and blood. I was still standing, and I wasn't going anywhere. You dare to cheat. Gu Zhao's roar cut through the stunned silence. Before anyone could process my strength, he moved again. His hand blurred as he prepared to strike the basalt slab with an 11th level of force. He wasn't just testing me anymore. He was trying to kill me. Stop. The voice didn't belong to Miao Linglong this time. Wu Qingxue stepped forward, her movement as swift as a falling star. A cold light flashed from her snow-white hand, a streak of pure energy that intercepted Gu Zhao's hidden strike midair. The impact shattered his technique into dust before it could touch the stone on my back. Wu Qingxue landed in the center of the field, her presence commanding and icy. Gu Zhao, the 10 levels are over. Are you trying to settle a personal grudge by murdering a student in public? Gu Zhao's face shifted through a dozen shades of red and purple. He had been looking for an excuse. If he killed a body cultivator by accident during an exam, the punishment would be light. He could get his revenge and earn a massive favor from Prince Ning's mansion at the same time. It was a perfect trade. Master Wu, you're overreacting, Gu Zhao sneered, trying to recover his composure. I simply thought the boy was cheating. I will report my oversight to the main academy myself. But you keep stepping in for this brat. Don't tell me you've actually fallen for him. The crowd gasped. All eyes snapped to Wu Qingxue. The whispers started instantly, crawling through the air like insects. They wondered why a goddess like her was protecting a lowly body cultivator. They mocked her, suggesting she had unique tastes. Wu Qingxue had lived her life as a symbol of purity. She had never faced such disgusting insults. Presumptuous, she barked. With a flick of her palm, a blast of ice crystal sword energy erupted. The force slammed into Gu Zhao, sending him flying backward. He couldn't even find his footing. He tumbled across the dirt for nearly 30 feet, his body covered in a layer of frost. He looked pathetic, his face turning deathly pale. Against a great sword master, a level 9 sword master like him didn't stand a chance. Apologize, she commanded, her voice like cracking ice. Gu Zhao trembled, frost already thickening on his skin. He looked at her with pure hatred. The ice sting. Wu Qingxue, you've got guts. The Qingfeng branch will remember this. He didn't wait for a second strike. He scrambled up and vanished into the distance with a few desperate leaps. Wu Qingxue didn't hesitate. She blurred into a streak of white, chasing after him to finish the conversation. I let out a ragged breath and dropped the basalt slab. It hit the ground with a deafening thud. My entire body screamed in pain. My spine, which had taken the brunt of the weight, felt like it was webbed with cracks. Yihong, take this. It's a tiger bone pill. Miao Linglong ran to my side, pressing a pale yellow pill into my hand. I didn't play hero. I swallowed it immediately, feeling the warmth spread through my shattered muscles. As I looked up, I caught Lin Feng's eye. His face was twisted with fury. I gave him a slow, mocking smile. His expression got even darker. He had leaked the news of my exam specifically to watch me fail, to see me humiliated or killed. Instead, I had become a legend. Humph. So you passed a little preliminary test. What's there to be proud of? A tall woman in her early 20s stepped forward, her eyes full of disdain. The two-leaf purple bamboo crest on her chest marked her as a level 2 swordmaster. Junior sister Bai is right, Lin Feng said, forcing his anger down and regaining his smug tone. He's just a body cultivator. Lowering ourselves to his level only hurts our status. The woman, Bai Yushi, smiled at him. She was clearly one of Lin Feng's followers, likely dreaming of marrying into the prince's mansion. Don't worry, senior brother. Next month is the resource distribution battle. That's when he'll learn that body cultivators are nothing but a joke in front of a real swordsman. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. With his family's power and his own strength as a level 3 swordmaster, rigging a fight was easy. He belonged to the Qingfeng Hall, the largest and most influential of the 4 sword branches. To the students, Qingfeng was the undisputed number 1. I watched them leave, my eyes turning cold. The battle with Lin Feng was just the beginning. I couldn't take on the entire prince's mansion yet, but Lin Feng? I was going to tear his world apart. Back at the body refining hall, my roommates were in shock. Old Six, you actually have the strength of a level 9 tiger leopard? Wang Mingming slapped my shoulder, making me wince. It just means I can take a hit of that power, I corrected him. It doesn't mean I can dish it out yet. There's a big difference. Gu Feng and Lin Heng exchanged a look. For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine respect in their eyes. Teacher, I asked Gu Feng, what are the rewards for the resource distribution battle? I'd been thinking about it the whole way back. Lin Heng was too cold to talk to, so I went straight to the old man. Forget the rewards, kid. Just aim to participate, Xiao Peng said, squinting his eyes. Even if you're strong, those bastards in the other halls won't ever let us win. They'll make sure of it. He's right, Huang Qiao added, patting my back. Since you're in the body refining hall, don't overthink it. Resources never make it to us anyway. A look of bitter resignation washed over everyone's faces, even the stoic Lin Heng. I frowned. I wasn't the type to just accept the crumbs. I spent an hour recovering, the tiger bone pill working wonders on my injuries. Once I could move without pain, I headed straight to the valley. I needed to master the finger sword thunder technique. I pushed myself through the Dan Thunder, Swift Thunder, and Shock Thunder forms. My understanding deepened, and my body grew tougher, but eventually, I hit a wall. The progress slowed to a crawl. It felt like I had reached a ceiling. Sword cultivators had bottlenecks. Did body cultivators have them too? Seeking answers, I found Gu Feng. Teacher, Before I could finish, Gu Feng took a long pull from his wine gourd. He looked satisfied for a second, then sighed with disappointment. This gourd is too small, he muttered, shaking it. It can't hold enough wine. And the opening is too narrow. It's not satisfying to drink from. Not at all. Old Third, go find me a bigger one with a wider mouth someday, will you? I froze. A bigger gourd? A wider mouth. I felt a spark of realization in the back of my mind. He wasn't talking about the wine. He was talking about me. I just had to figure out exactly what he meant. Gu Feng had given me the hint I needed. The rest was up to my own understanding. I cupped my hands in respect and thanked him before heading back to my room. Behind me, I heard Gu Feng chuckle. Guidance. Did I even give him any? He looked like a man hiding 1,000 secrets behind a lazy smile. Back in my room, I replayed his words in my head. A wine gourd that wasn't big enough couldn't hold much wine. If you wanted more wine, you needed a bigger gourd. It was so simple it was brilliant. If my body was the gourd, then my strength was the wine. My eyes lit up as the realization hit me like a physical blow. To hold more power, I needed a larger capacity. Sword cultivators stored their energy in their sword veins. The wider the veins, the more power they held. As a body cultivator, my power lived in my flesh and my meridians. I had reached a bottleneck because my physical foundation was full. To get stronger, I didn't need more energy. I needed to expand the container. I knew what I had to do. I needed medicine to broaden my meridians. I walked back outside to find Gufeng. My view of this disheveled old man had completely changed. He had seen through my thunder-tempered body at a glance, and now he had diagnosed my bottleneck without me saying a word. He wasn't just some lazy drunk. He was a master. He was still lying on his chair, lazily waving a tattered fan. "Teacher," I said, my voice full of genuine respect, "where in the Southern Prison Academy can I find medicine to expand my meridians?" The fan stopped moving for a split second. "Go to the Medicine King Valley," he muttered. "Bring back the ingredients for a Heaven Yuan pill." He tossed a piece of paper at me. It was a recipe for a low-grade pill. I caught it and tucked it away safely. "Old Third," Gufeng called out. "Go with him." Wang Mingming, who had been dozing off, nearly jumped out of his skin. "No way. Absolutely not. Just the entrance fee for the valley is 500 silver coins. I'm broke." He looked like a panicked miser protecting his last cent. I winced at the price. 500 coins just to get in? No wonder the best experts came from wealthy families. Poverty was a wall higher than any mountain. Haha, old Gu, trying to get money out of Fathead is like trying to pluck hair from a ceramic rooster, Xiao Peng laughed. The others joined in, except for the cold Lin Heng. Zhao Chong, the second disciple, just shook his head. "Third senior brother," I said, approaching Wang Mingming. I was penniless myself, having handed everything over to him earlier. "I don't have it. Don't look at me." He scrambled to get up and run, but I was faster. I blocked his path. "I'm not asking for a handout," I said, my mind racing. "I'm offering a deal. Give me 500 silver, and I'll turn it into 1,000. Maybe 2,000. His eyes sparkled. The greed won out over his fear. "A deal? Tell me about this valley first. You want to harvest herbs to sell?" Wang Mengming's excitement faded into disappointment. "The valley is packed with herbs, but most people are lucky to even make back their entrance fee. For a rookie, you'll be lucky to keep your life." I frowned. Was it really that dangerous? Honestly, the danger didn't scare me as much as the thought of staying weak. "The fatty isn't lying to you, junior brother," Zhao Chong added, walking over. "The Medicine King Valley is a ruin thousands of years old, left by a master of the profound realm. It has ancient arrays that gather spiritual energy, which creates rare herbs, but also terrifying beasts." He paused, his expression serious. "The academy manages it now as a training ground. It's lethal because the school allows fighting inside. If you find something valuable, other students will try to kill you for it." I nodded slowly. Getting money from Wang Mingming was going to be impossible now. But I had to go. My family was under the shadow of Prince Ning's blade. If I didn't take every risk to get stronger, we were all dead anyway. I thought about asking Miao Linglong for a loan. I knew she'd say yes, but the thought of asking her for more money stung my pride. I had already used thousands of her coins. I needed to earn my own way. "If you want money without begging the fatty, go to the mission hall," Huang Qiao suggested. "High-level tasks pay well over 500 silver." My interest piqued. My aunt had mentioned these bounty missions before. I headed straight for the mission hall, guided by a map of the academy. The hall was buzzing with people. A massive wall was covered in wooden plaques, each representing a task. I scanned the rank 1 missions. These were mostly for beginners, but I followed the wall up to the very top. My eyes locked onto a single plaque at the highest point. Difficulty, 9-star rank 1. Task, hunt a Kylan blood leopard. Retrieve 1 bottle of Kylan blood and 3 leopard tusks. Reward, 8,000 silver coins. Time limit, 20 days. Every other mission offered maybe 1,000 coins at most. This one was untouched. It was clearly far beyond the level of a standard student. The reward was massive, but the risk was obviously suicidal. I didn't hesitate. I leaped into the air, grabbed the plaque, and landed firmly on the ground. The entire hall went silent. Then, a wave of whispers erupted. "Who is that guy?" A 9-star mission? He must have a death wish. The whispers started the moment my fingers brushed the wood. 4 rank 9 experts had already died trying to complete this task. The target was a Kylan blood leopard, a beast king that had lived for over 900 years. It carried a trace of ancient Kylan blood in its veins. A single swipe from its claws packed 20,000 caddies of force. The mission had been hanging in the hall for over 6 months. No one dared touch it. Wait, isn't that the new kid, Yihong? Someone muttered. I heard he used to be a genius, but his soul was crippled. Now he's just a body cultivator with no future. Following that old drunkard Gufeng? He's basically committing suicide. I felt their eyes on me. Some were filled with contempt, others with a flickering shadow of pity. I didn't care. Mockery didn't break bones, and it certainly didn't pay the bills. Whether I had a future or not depended on my fists, not their mouths. I walked out of the hall and pulled out a book I had brought from home called the 10,000 Demon Manual. It was a comprehensive guide to every beast found within the Qi Kingdom, updated every 3 years. According to the records, the Kylan blood leopard frequented 3 places: Qi Ming Mountain, Jiufeng Mountain, and the Immortal Sacrifice Altar. The manual described their habits, hunting patterns, and weaknesses in detail. It wasn't a god-tier weapon, but in the wild, knowledge was the difference between a kill and a grave. As the sun began to bleed across the horizon, I left the Southern Prison Academy alone. I headed straight for Qi Ming Mountain. It was the closest location, but also the most treacherous. The manual warned of a 1,000-year-old great demon called the Flame Python that lived there. One breath from that thing could turn a man to ash. I just hoped I wouldn't run into it. I hiked deep into the mountains, pushing through thick forests and jagged rocks. Eventually, I found a large lake. The shore was littered with footprints of all sizes, beasts and humans alike. The manual said the Kylan blood leopard was a clean creature. It liked to bathe at the first light of dawn. I found a patch of deep grass near a large stone and settled in to wait. I didn't waste time. I began circulating the 1,000-leaf pathless seal to nourish my soul. I was close to a breakthrough. If I could reach the late stages of the Void Realm, my Godsteel seal would grow even stronger. Suddenly, a shiver ran down my spine. I sensed a heavy, murderous aura approaching. I slowly parted the grass. 2 massive shadows were stooping down to drink from the lake. One was a blue spirit rhino, nearly 20 feet long. The other was an 8-horned lizard. Both were 300-year-old beast kings. My heart hammered against my ribs. Their beast cores would be a feast for my ancestral dragon soul. I reached for my weapon, ready to strike, when the water exploded. 2 massive tentacles, each over a foot thick, lashed out like lightning. They wrapped around the rhino and the lizard before the beasts could even scream. With a violent jerk, both beast kings were dragged under the surface. A massive cloud of blood bloomed in the water, turning the blue lake into a crimson pool. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. It was a blood giant octopus. I broke into a cold sweat. That thing had just deleted 2 powerful beast kings in a single breath. If I had jumped out a second earlier, I would have been its appetizer. I stayed buried in the grass, extending my soul power to probe the water. The tentacles didn't reappear. I opened my manual and flipped through the pages until I found a match. It was a 500-year-old blood giant octopus. These things usually lived in the deep ocean. What was it doing in a freshwater lake? Then I saw the footnote. Every 100 years, these creatures faced a tribulation. To survive the lightning strikes, they often hid in inland lakes to mask their scent. My eyes lit up. A beast undergoing a tribulation was a rare opportunity. For a short window after the trial, the beast's core would retain tribulation power. For a cultivator, that energy was a miracle tonic for breaking through stubborn bottlenecks. I decided to wait. 2 days passed. I watched the octopus snatch several more beasts, and even 2 unlucky human hunters. There was still no sign of the leopard, but the atmosphere around the lake was changing. A thick red mist began to rise from the water, hardening into a bloody barrier. Above us, the sky turned pitch black. Dark clouds swirled into a massive vortex. Thunder rumbled like a dying god, and silver streaks of lightning danced between the clouds. It was starting. If the octopus survived this, it would evolve into a 600-year-old beast king. If it failed, centuries of cultivation would turn to dust. Looking at that massive creature rising from the depths, I felt a strange sense of resonance. In this world, nothing was easy. Every living thing had to fight the heavens just to exist. The first bolt of lightning tore through the sky. It slammed into the blood barrier with a deafening crack. The shield, built from the octopus's own essence, shattered instantly. The remaining electricity surged downward, striking the beast's massive, house-sized body. The octopus let out a horrific, gurgling roar. It thrashed wildly, its 16 tentacles whipping the lake into a frenzy, sending plumes of water 60 feet into the air. The battle against the heavens had begun. Blood gushed from the creature's wounds, staining the lake a deep, sickening crimson. As the black clouds above finally began to drift away, the bloodthirsty giant octopus went still. Its massive body floated on the surface of the red water like a house-sized island of meat. It didn't move an inch. It looked like the heavens had won and the beast had failed its trial. I didn't take any chances. I crept toward the shore, stopping just a few yards away. I extended my soul power, reaching out like an invisible hand to check for any sign of life. The moment my energy touched its skin, the water exploded. The corpse surged upright, a massive shadow blocking out the sky. A tentacle as thick as a blood-red python whipped through the air, aiming straight for my waist. The beast had been playing dead. It was weak, but it was very much alive. I reacted instantly, my muscles tensing as I activated the Yuan Fei movement technique. I blurred to the side, feeling the wind of the tentacle whistle past my ear. But this was a king-level beast. It was faster than I expected. 7 more tentacles erupted from the water, sealing off every possible escape route. It was a cage of flesh and slime. Before I could pivot, 2 of the massive limbs wrapped around my torso and legs. They lifted me high into the air, squeezing with the force of a hydraulic press. I channeled my great soul power, trying to flex my way out, but it was useless. This creature was the perfect counter for a body cultivator like me. Its flesh was soft and elastic, absorbing my strength like a sponge. My bones began to creak and groan under the pressure. I could handle 10,000 pounds of force, but this felt like being crushed by the ocean itself. The octopus pulled me toward its face. It opened its beak, revealing a dark, pulsing throat that smelled like rotting fish and ancient death. It had swallowed a blue spirit rhino whole earlier. I was just a snack. "You want to eat me?" I hissed through gritted teeth. I didn't panic. I focused my mind, and with a flick of my soul power, my flying dagger shot into the air. It streaked toward the beast's open mouth like a bolt of silver. The blade plunged into its throat, but I felt a jolt of shock. The dagger didn't go through. Even the softest part of the creature's internal flesh was as tough as reinforced leather. The blade was stuck. The octopus let out a muffled, gurgling roar of fury. It swung me downward, slamming my body against a jagged rock on the shore. The impact rattled my teeth, but it gave me the opening I needed. I triggered the Wuxiang Shingang technique. My mind shook as I condensed my soul power into a single, invisible sword. This wasn't a physical weapon. It was a blade of pure spirit. I launched it straight between the creature's massive, bulging eyes. My consciousness followed the blade. I felt myself enter a cold, misty void filled with the beast's primitive malice. Dozens of ghostly tentacles rose up in that mental space to crush my soul's sword. I didn't flinch. I let the sword explode into a whirlwind of sharp intent. If I can't cut your skin, I'll shred your soul. The spiritual tentacles were sliced to ribbons. Outside, the octopus froze. Its grip loosened for a fraction of a second as its brain reeled from the mental trauma. That was my window. I flooded my meridians with lightning energy, feeling the sparks dance across my skin. I wrenched myself free from the slimy grip and leaped back onto solid ground. The beast recovered quickly. It was beyond angry now. It dragged its massive bulk onto the shore, its 8 tentacles lashing out like whips of fire. I met it head-on. I used the Banlei style, my fists glowing with crackling electricity. Every time a tentacle got close, I punched. The lightning surged into its flesh, making the beast shriek in pain. I moved like a shadow, using my finger sword techniques to hack away at the limbs. I managed to sever the tips of 4 tentacles, but the beast was relentless. It actually grabbed its own severed parts and stuffed them into its mouth, fueling its rage. I realized I couldn't win a war of attrition. I needed a killing blow. I looked at the massive, charred gash on its head where the heavenly lightning had struck earlier. That was the weak point. If I could get close enough to shove my power into that wound, it would be over. But the octopus was smart. It kept 4 tentacles layered in front of the wound like a shield. We traded blows for several minutes. I was bruised and bleeding, and the beast was losing limbs, but neither of us would back down. Then, I noticed something. Its movements were getting sluggish. Its skin was turning a dull, sickly gray. This was a deep-sea creature. It wasn't meant for freshwater lakes, and it definitely wasn't meant for the dry air of the shore. The environment was killing it faster than I was. Realizing it was losing, the octopus suddenly bloated its body. It sprayed a thick, deep red mist from its beak. This was stonebone venom. According to the records, 1 drop could turn a man's insides to rock. I held my breath and vanished into the trees, avoiding the spray. The octopus didn't follow. It turned and scrambled toward the water, desperate to escape back to the depths. "You're not going anywhere." I lunged forward, grabbing the thickest tentacle with both hands. I planted my feet into the dirt, channeling every ounce of my strength into my arms. With a roar that tore at my throat, I swung. The 1,000-pound beast was ripped off the ground. I spun in a circle, using its own momentum against it, and slammed the creature headfirst into a pile of boulders. The sound of the impact was like a mountain collapsing. The octopus went limp, its remaining tentacles twitching feebly in the dust. This time, it wasn't faking. I didn't stop. I grabbed the beast's tentacles and slammed its massive body against the jagged rocks over and over again. If it hadn't already been scorched and weakened by the lightning, it might have survived this, but in its battered state, it didn't stand a chance. I targeted the open wounds, smashing it down dozens of times until the ground was soaked in dark blood. Finally, the giant octopus went limp, drifting into the stillness of death. I tossed the heavy corpse aside, breathing hard. But the moment it hit the dirt, shing, a flash of cold light streaked through the air from the nearby brush. It was an arrow, glowing with a faint golden hue. It tore through the octopus's dead flesh and thudded into the ground, a visible vortex of energy swirling around its tail. "Wow, Brother MOU. You're amazing," a high-pitched, crisp voice chirped. "You killed the blood-sucking giant octopus in 1 shot." 4 figures stepped out from the tall grass, 2 men and 2 women. Leading them was a girl who looked about 16. She wore a pale green dress that complemented her tall, slender frame. Her features were delicate, her eyes like clear mountain springs, and when she smiled, tiny dimples appeared on her cheeks. She was beautiful, but my eyes immediately locked onto the emblem on her chest, a 9-leaf orchid bamboo. My heart sank. She was only 16, yet she was already a level 9 swordsman. With that kind of talent, she should have been scouted by the top sword sects. Why was she still at the Southern Prison Academy? I didn't have time for puzzles. I turned my back on them and walked toward the dead beast. I pulled out a small flying knife and sliced into the octopus's head. Now that it was dead, its rubbery skin was easier to pierce. I reached inside and pulled out a fist-sized orb. It was deep red, flickering with arcs of silver electricity. This wasn't normal lightning. This was extremity power. This was exactly what I came for. "Put it down." A cold, arrogant voice cut through the air. It was the man in white, the one holding the bow. He looked to be about 21, and he also wore the 9-leaf bamboo badge. He was the one who had fired that golden arrow. "That orb doesn't belong to you," he said, his eyes dripping with disdain as they fixed on the treasure in my hand. I saw the greed flickering in his gaze. An orb from a 600-year-old beast king, especially one containing extremity power, was a priceless rarity. I ignored him and tucked the orb away. I wasn't about to hand over a fortune to some stranger just because he had a shiny bow. "Where did this peasant come from?" the other woman snapped. She wore a blue dress and looked to be the same age as MOU, though she was only a level 5 swordsman. She looked at MOU with worshipping eyes before glaring at me. "Brother MO, you just saved your life. How dare you try to steal his prize? Have you no shame?" I almost laughed. MOU's arrow had hit a corpse. I didn't need saving, and they were the ones trying to rob me in broad daylight. Brother MOU. A tall, lanky man stepped forward, his hand on his hilt. He's just trash who hasn't even opened his sword. See. Let me teach him a lesson. I glanced at his badge, a 5-leaf bamboo. Before I even entered the academy, I had killed Peng Ting, who was a level 5. This guy was nothing to me. The only one I was actually worried about was the silent girl in the green dress. Just as the lanky man moved to strike, the green-dressed girl finally spoke. Her voice was like flowing water. The beast, she killed it. Don't make things difficult. If you want the orb, offer her money for it. I felt a small spark of relief. Finally, someone with eyes. Sister Zhou, you must be mistaken, the woman in blue cried out. Even though she was older, she addressed the younger girl as sister, clearly respecting her rank. She's just a low-level waste. How could she kill a giant octopus? If it weren't for Brother MOU's armor-piercing arrow, she'd be fish food by now. She was a talented liar, spinning the story without even blinking. MOU's face soured. He knew the beast was dead before his arrow landed, but he didn't believe I killed it either. He probably thought the lightning from the storm had finished it off, and I was just a lucky scavenger. Fine, MOU said, his voice dripping with condescension. Zhou is too kind-hearted. Give her some silver and take the orb. The woman in blue, enro, smirked and tossed a few silver coins at my feet. 5 silver coins. That's more than you'd earn in 10 days. Hand it over. She looked at me like she was performing an act of charity. But my mind was stuck on a different detail. Zhou. The name sounded familiar, like a memory from a past life I couldn't quite grasp. Trash. I told you to hand it over. Are you deaf? Enro screamed when I didn't move. Give it up, or I'll cripple you. She was desperate to impress MOU. Before I could even respond, she drew her sword. The blade hissed through the air, aimed straight for my throat. It was a fast, lethal strike, the full power of a level 5 swordsman. Stop, Zhou shouted, but she was too late. The blade was inches from my neck. MOU watched with a cruel smirk. She's just a peasant. If she doesn't die by our hands, she'll die by something else. But his smirk froze. In the heartbeat before the blade bit into my skin, I raised my right hand. I didn't draw a weapon. I simply extended my fingers, channeling my inner power into a single point. I struck the flat of her blade with my bare fingers. Clang! A spark of lightning exploded at the point of contact. The sound of shattering metal rang through the clearing as Enro's sword snapped in half. The force of the impact sent her reeling backward, her face pale with shock.